special episode for the MMA Roundtable. It's the 20th episode, February 21st. Excited, we got a lot of UFC to break down. It seems like we've had 4 or 5 cards in the last 5 or 6 weeks. We had a card this past weekend, and we have a card this coming Saturday, UFC 157. Going to break down both of those, plus the week in MMA news. Ray was actually just a member of the media at UFC on Fuel 7. Going to talk about that. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for tuning in to the 20th MMA Roundtable. Always have fun doing this, and I'm looking forward to the next 20 gentlemen. This week, we got a 5-man crew. Dave and Chris are not with us, but we have myself, Ray and Patrick from MMA Mental. We got Ramses from the Word on the Street podcast, and our buddy Jay. Big thanks to MMA Mental, Word on the Street. You can listen to this show, the MMA Roundtable. It's every Thursday. And we've been pretty consistent with the time. I think every episode just about has been Thursday, 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 Pacific, 12 to 2 if you're over in the UK. And we bring a lot of people on. We had Mike Hammersmith from MMA Valor on last week. Had a lot of fun having him on the show. But Ray, you were just a member of the media. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But MMA Mental, y'all keep getting bigger and bigger. You have I wouldn't be shocked if you all had 40 interviews on the next show. You're going crazy with them. How's it going over at MMA Mental, man?
Yeah, it's going brilliant. We haven't quite done 40 interviews in a week yet, but there is a lot going on at the minute. We'll just let you know who we had on this week's show. We did have a busy week last week. So guess we had last week, and obviously this was some of these interviews were pre-fight. These were for UFC on Fuel. So we spoke to Phil Harris, who obviously talked to us about his fight coming up with Ulysses Gomez, which of course he won. We also spoke with Gareth A. Davis from the UK, one of the lead MMA journalists in the UK, if not the lead MMA journalist in the UK, and he talked about the 3 main fights on the card, give us his predictions, and also talked about UFC UK in the MMA, which was very interesting. We continue to cover and promote a local event, which is in Coventry, Star Strike Promotions. We spoke to one of their head coaches for the Pariah Gym, Kevin Webb, and a couple of his fighters, Sol Boyd and Wayne Farrington. We also continue to work with XFC, and we spoke with Paul Gonzalez and Jimmy Fowler. They're having their weigh-ins tonight, and of course their event will be tomorrow, XFC 22. We've been working with them over the last 6-7 weeks promoting that event. Then we had UFC Bantamweight Francisco Rivera on. But our biggest interview of the week, which me and Patrick did, was we spoke to UFC welterweight Johnny Hendricks. Now, ironically, when we spoke to him, he was still fighting Jake Ellenberger. A matter of days later, of course, that's all changed. But it was still brilliant. We chatted with him for half an hour. He went into so much detail about his fight so far. Some of his what were his toughest fights. It was just great to talk with him. And I also I got the opportunity to speak to Dana White this week at the UFC on Fuel TV 7 press conference. So I have recorded my question, his answer, and I posted that on the podcast as well, because that's always worth a listen when you get to speak to Dana White.
Yeah, that was nutty hearing you at the press conference. We'll talk about that in just a second. Ramsey's Word on the Street. Your podcast started very free form, but it's sort of gained a little bit of footing. You're doing that Tuesday night show. You're regularly, I feel like you regularly land the Team Sonnen fighter who's fighting that night. You speak with the living legend, Coach Jamie Huey, a bunch. You had Kevin Gastelum on, who fought and upset Bubba McDaniel, the kind of golden boy at Team Jones. No one else wanted to fight him. Talk to us about Word on the Street and what's going on over there, man.
Yeah, the Word on the Street, man, it was great this week. Tuesday After Tough, we had on Kelvin Gastelum, who did whoop Bubba's ass, made him cry like a little baby. He strangled that man with a submission that nobody saw coming, really. Even Bubba, you could see when he was getting choked out, he didn't even believe it himself. But yeah, it's podcast, whatever, I got to go, whatever. The important thing, if you want to change your life, if you're tired of being a joke every time you go out to the club, you ask a girl to dance. She says, yeah, sure, just buy me a drink first. You go and buy her a drink. But when you come back with the drink, she's nowhere to be found. If you're sick of that shit happening, if you're tired of being a joke... You just described
to me exactly. Sorry.
That's right, man. It's all of us, man. I know how it goes. I used to be one of you guys. But if you want to change all that, you follow me on Twitter, the Ant Jimmy Show, and you'll never be the same again.
Hell yeah. And, all of us except Ramses, who I'm trying to indoctrinate into the MMA playground. All of us are big members on the playground. Myself, Ray, Patrick, and Jay. The MMA playground, the best picks game on the internet, the best forum. Jay, why don't you plug the MMA playground a little bit?
Yeah, man, I absolutely love it there. I haven't been there as long as some of you guys. I know that Ray's been there an absolute ton. I think, Jake, you've only been on it for about a year, but yeah.
Newcomer of the year, 2012, yeah.
Exactly. You want to try and get in maybe by the end of the year so you can try and snag up some awards. No, seriously, guys, we have an incredible forum. The guys on it are great. Go to MMAplayground.com and get your picks in and see if you can beat us. Jake's not that good at his picks, so it's pretty
horrible.
easy to beat.
I'm very horrible at picking MMA fights. I'm dangling around 500 this season. It's not been very pretty. I had 10 points on an event I picked every fight on, which for people listening, I only picked 2 fights of like 10 or 11 correctly, and I did not pick them by the correct means. It's pretty horrible.
Yeah, we've all been there. I know there's a few people on there who only get one right in an entire card. So you can never be worse than those guys. But, it's just a bit of fun. Go do it. You can even win money if you do well.
Hell yeah. Go on the MMA Playground. Check them out on Twitter, at MMA Playground. You can follow us all on Twitter. I'm the MMA Podcast. Ray is MMA Mental. Ramses is the Ant Jimmy Show. Patrick is Sweet Pappy Jones, and Jay is the letter J _ jeans, like the kind you wear. And my podcast, the MMA Podcast, is every Friday, 9 to 11 Eastern. Ramses has been guest hosting the last few weeks. He'll be on the next couple weeks. We had Darren Cruikshank on last week. Really fun interview. Definitely check that out. The clip of the interview is on YouTube. You can just type the MMA Podcast and follow our channel. We're getting a lot more YouTube subscribers. I think last month we only had a handful, but I feel like I get an email every day saying we've picked up 1 or 2 more YouTube subscribers, so that's always fun. That was a really fun interview we had. So yeah, let's get into the podcast, I guess, and if you want to tweet us, you can tweet any of us, the MMA Podcast or MMA Mental. How is everyone doing? I don't have eyebrows anymore because I accidentally took off half of one and had to even them out. So my paleness, along with no eyebrows, I look albino as hell. So that's not really going well for me. Ray, you doing well over there?
I still have eyebrows. Yeah, I'm doing well. I've got tomorrow off work. I'm not back in work till Monday. So I'm going to an MMA event on Saturday to cover a local event in Coventry. We've got UFC 157. I don't need anything else, really.
Yeah, I'm not doing so well over here on the word on the street. I've had a bad knee for a while. Yesterday I was, overcompensating, going down the stairs, shifting weight to the other one. I fucking just landed wrong. I'm pretty sure at least one of my toes is broken right now. 2 of the others are questionable. I'm in a lot of pain, but I took some pain pills. I'm smoking weed and drinking right now for you guys just to make it here on the fucking round table. That's commitment right there. Word on the street.
Glad to hear you're on it, Ramses, and I hope your toe gets better. Yeah, everything's going all right with me. I'm a little bit gutted to know that I stay up, past, 2, 3 a.m., 3 times a week for MMA. I love the sport so much, and then the UFC goes ahead and cuts 3 UK fighters. It's a bit of a kick in the nuts, especially given how little UK guys we have in the UFC, but it is what it is, and getting over it slowly. But yeah, everything other than that, everything's fine with me.
Well, things are going good for your boy T Money. Just celebrated the anniversary with the missus the other day. Things are going lovely. Can't complain about a thing. Looking forward to 157 this weekend, right in my neck of the woods. That's in Anaheim, California, at the Honda Center. Got that big headline first women's title fight, and lots of big names on this card. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, things are going beautifully.
Hell yeah. We're going to break down that card at the end of the show. We got the first women's fight in the UFC, the women's bantamweight title between Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche. And, of course, what's sort of been the gem of the UFC for a while now, with Chuck sort of going to the champions that followed after, to John Jones. The 205 has always sort of been one of the most esteemed divisions in the UFC, and we got a title eliminator match according to Dana, who I knew he would flip-flop on saying Gustafsson would get it, but looks like the winner of Hendo Machida will get the winner of Jones Sonnen. We'll break that card down at the end of the show, but we're going to start off with UFC on Fuel 7. This card we had in England this past Saturday, and our buddy Ray, who owns and operates MMA Mental, actually was credentialed as an official member of the media over in the UK just a few weeks ago, or a month or two ago. It may have been now. It seems like it was just recently, but nonetheless, he got a media credential to UFC on Fuel 7. Ray, I'll let you take it away. What it was like. You're kind of an everyday Joe like us, it seems like, but you're making moves with MMA Mental, and now you're an official member of the press, and we're treated as such at the event. Take us through your entire experience. UFC on Fuel 7, Brown McDonald, a member of the media. How was it, man?
Thank you. Yeah, you are right. I am just your everyday Joe, but I suppose I always kind of push, and eventually someone takes notice, and at the minute it seems like we've got a few people taking notice, which is always nice. But yeah, it was an absolutely amazing experience. I have wrote a blog on it, which is on MMA Mental, which I'll tweet out again, and I'm going to send to Jake and Ramses. They're going to tweet out as well. But I'll just quickly go through the highlights of the event, because I know we're all the same. We're all hardcore fans, and I think for most of us, doing something like this, well, for me it was amazing. I think most of you would probably feel the same. If you got the opportunity, it would be an amazing experience. So I'll just talk you through what kind of things we got up to. So I turned up at the arena for 4:30 in the afternoon, because obviously it was, you've got to get there early, get yourself checked in. I was there, I was one of the earlier media guys there, so that was good. So I was near the front of the queue. I got chatting to a guy behind me. His name was Dan, and then I found out that he was from MMA Torch, which I actually follow him. It's MMA Talks Dan on Twitter, so I was already following him. Spoke to him a little bit, introduced myself, and then said I told him, obviously trying to get in with people, you want them to know who you are and what you've done. So I said, we were the website that interviewed Tyson Fury when he called out Kane. He said, oh yeah, I heard that interview. So he knew who we were, which was nice. Anyway, went in, had to show my photo ID. Got my pass, if you like. It's like a thing that went around my neck, so I could literally go. There's still certain areas you couldn't go, but obviously it gave me a bit more freedom than what the general public had. I needed access to the internet, so they said if you go in that room, you'll be able to get a little slip, and it'll give you your Wi-Fi password and stuff. So I went in the room, which was actually the press conference room, which I didn't realise at the time, but obviously there's no one in there for the press conference. But there was a man in there chatting away on his phone, and it was someone I'd interviewed recently, and I really wanted to go up and say hello to him, but because he was on his phone, I didn't want to instruct him to be rude, but it was actually Bruce Buffer was standing there on his phone. I was literally feet away from him. But obviously I couldn't go and speak to him when he was on his phone because it was rude. So I got my pass, and I was ushered out of the room. So I left the room and I went and then looked back to then go and find my seat. So I got sent around the arena a little bit, but eventually I found my entrance to the seat. I went down, and it was obviously a floor seat, which I knew it was going to be, but I didn't really know what to expect when I got down there. There was 4 rows of press, and I was on the 4th row. But I reckon I was about 15 feet away from the cage, so I was really, really close to the front. It was just very surreal, and I literally sat there, planked myself there, thought I'm not going to miss anything, and just sat and watched all the fights. And I mean, for me it was an amazing event. Maybe in general it wasn't the best event, but I really enjoyed it, probably because of the whole experience. The first couple of fights were a bit slow. Then Tom Watson come in, and he was an absolute beast. And then we had some really good UK guys pull off the upset. Andy Ogle pulled off the upset. That was disappointing to see Sass and Etim lose. I was not surprised to see Mills lose, because I think Riddle's very underrated. But I actually, on the prelims, I went 1-5, which was absolutely awful. But I pulled it back, so I went 6-0 on the main card, which was nice. So I watched all the fights. That was brilliant. When I was at the conference, the guy I was sitting next to, his name was Jay Furness, and he was there as media as well. And as I was chatting with him, I told him who I was, what site job, and he knew the site. He'd listened to some of my interviews, and it actually came out. He actually told me he was a pro fighter himself. He's got a fight coming up soon, fighting for a title in the UK. And one of his losses, he's 8-2, was actually to Andy Ogle, which was quite ironic. We were talking through the Andy Ogle fight, so I've set up contacts with him. He's going to come on the show, and we're going to interview him on the show, which was nice because we always like to interview the UK guys as well as the international guys. And then it was time for the press conference. Now, I didn't really know what to expect, but I thought, right, I want to go in and experience this, see what it's like. I genuinely didn't think I'd get to ask a question because I've done the calls before, and you don't get opportunity on the calls unless you're really one of the more well-known members of the media, like your MMA junkies and your Sherdogs, and Aaron Halwani's been down there asking questions. So I thought, well, I'm going to go in. If I get a chance to ask a question, I had a question in mind. I thought, right, if I get a chance, I'm going to ask it. But, if I don't, then that's fair enough. So they said, if you want to ask any questions, put your hand up. So I put my hand up, and then I thought nothing of it. And then about a few minutes later, a woman came over to give me a microphone. I thought, brilliant, we're on here. So I waited my turn. It come to me. And, of course, I've had this thing in my head since I started that if ever I get the opportunity to speak directly to Dana White, I actually thought it would be maybe on one of these press conference calls. I didn't think in my wildest dreams I'd be in the same room, matter of feet away. But I thought I want to speak to him because obviously he's the main man. So I said, my question's for Dana White. I said, we've obviously got a current season of The Ultimate Fighter running at the moment. Have you had any more thoughts about a Tough Smashes 2? And after tonight's event, who better to coach than Jimmy Manuwa and James Tina? And he looked at me he was looking straight in my eyes, which was amazing. He looked at me with a massive grin on his face, just big beaming smile, and said to me, "Yeah, I agree." He said, I think he said, "I agree with you 100%." In other words, he really liked my idea, which was nice. Then he went into a little bit about the TV deal and said, basically, once the TV deal's done, will be a new series of Tough Smashes, and he liked my ideas of the coaches. So as I was leaving, then because we all the press leave through the same doors as the fighters. So as I was leaving, I went up to Jimmy Manuwa and I shook his hand and said, "I'll put a good word in there for him." And he just looked at me and smiled. And I've interviewed Jimmy before, so I sent him a tweet so he knew that who it was that had put the word in for him. And then I also I spoke to Cub as well on the way out. I asked him about his brother. So I thought that'd be a good way to grab his attention, because I'm sure he gets asked all the same questions all the time. But I bet no one, especially thousands of miles away in another country, not many people are going to know about his brother. But obviously I did through Patrick. So I said, "Oh, when are we going to see your brother in the UFC?" And it kind of grabbed his attention straight away. And we started talking a little bit about his brother. And I said, "I've been trying to get your brother on the show for a while, but we just haven't been able to pull it off." He said, "Oh, what show's that?" So I said, "Oh, it's MMA Mental." So I wanted to obviously work that into the conversation. Yeah, and that was the experience. But I mean, the whole event was just amazing. But I think that as much as I enjoyed the fight card, I think going to the press conference afterwards and getting the opportunity to one, to address Dana White, and then two, for him to look straight back at me, like eye contact, eyeball to eyeball, and then answer my question and literally agree with me. How many people can say they've had Dana White say to them, "I agree with you 100%," and that's what he said to me. So that was just amazing.
That's awesome, bro. I'm sure most fans would have killed for that experience. And before we talk about the card, Ray was able to ask about Manuwa versus James Tahuna for Tough Smashes 2. I think it makes perfect sense. Manuwa's worked his way up to being a top 3 fighter from the UK. James is probably a top 5, top 3 guy from Australia as well. Makes perfect sense. They're both up and comers in the 205 division. What do you guys think about it?
I think Ray's matchup is pretty damn good. At first, I hit him with I was like, I want Brian Ebersol to be on the Aussie side. Then Ray, corrected me that Brian isn't actually, he wasn't born in Australia. He just happened to live there, fight out there the last couple of years. So that would have been cool. But no, I think Ray's matchup is excellent. And you should get a cut of that fucking money, Ray. If Dana makes that happen, man, you should get a slice. Word on the street.
I like the fight. However, I heard, I think it was either Jimmy, I think it might have been Jimmy Manuwa, tweeted about, maybe it was James, whatever. One of them said that they're actually friends, and he didn't, he thought it was a good idea, but he wouldn't want to fight him. So unless the other one steps up and says, "Why don't you want to fight me?" I don't see the fight happening itself, but it will be a fantastic match. Those two power strikers. I mean, we get to see Manuwa even finish a fight properly in the UFC. but that'd be a good fight. I'd really enjoy it, and I don't think it'd be nice. I'd like to see it. I wonder if James Tahuna would use his grappling again. Oh yeah, great fight, Ray. Good shout.
Yeah, I thought it was great as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn that Ray, you even suggested that a week or two ago on the MMA Mental / MMA Podcast Roundtable / Word on the Street Roundtable. But yeah, I liked it then, and I'll tell you what, that just how it must have been just so much more awesome having that question after the way both of their respective fights had played out on that card. I mean, that just set it up even better. It was definitely a home run, and to get a reaction like that from Dana White, I mean, for Dana White to look at you and say, "Oh, I agree 100%," you know, I like that, you know, we want to do that, blah blah blah. I mean, if you ask him a dumb question, he'll tell you you're a fucking idiot and tell you to leave the room, and he'll never fucking let you get pressed for an event again. And you came up, the first question, knocked it out of the park, and yeah, solid matchup.
For sure, yeah, that had to be a hell of an experience. Jimmy Manuwa, I mean, you look at his last two fights against solid guys with Granite Chins, Diabate and Kingsbury. Both of them, I was worried about both of them after the first 5 minutes. I guess I'll just say that. Yeah, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about that UFC on Fuel 7 main card, which included both James Tahuna and Jimmy Manuwa. But we'll start off with the Matt Riddle split decision victory over Che Mills. It was 29-28, 28-29, 30-27. What you all thought on the fight? Mills was cut after the fight, so you know there's not really too much to speculate about him, other than whether he'll go to Bellator or a UK promotion like BAMMA. But give me your thoughts on the fight and what you think is next for Matt Riddle in the UFC.
Right, my thoughts on the fight. I mean, it wasn't a great fight. Matt Riddle did what he needed to do. No, you know, I've got no problems with what Matt Riddle did. Matt Riddle went out there to win the fight, and he did. I mean, he would have been an idiot to stand with Che Mills when he's got such an advantage with his wrestling, and he did that. One of the funniest things, actually, at the press conference was, look at me names dropping, at the press conference was when they talked about the fact it was a split decision. Because obviously there's no way Che Mills won 2 rounds in that fight. You'd have to be an idiot to think that he did. And one of the people asked Dana, they said, was there a mistake made? And Dana said, yes, there was. Somebody appointed that fucking idiot a judge. And I just thought it was brilliant when he said that, because there's no way that was a split decision. I mean, it was clearly a dominant fight from Matt Riddle. The other thing as well was that Dana White, this wasn't at the press conference, he said afterwards that he was disappointed with Che Mills because he just gave up in the fight. And I think that played a part in Che Mills being cut, because he took top position near the end, and he had a chance to throw some bombs and see if he can get a finish, and he didn't do anything because obviously he was out of gas. And obviously, if you're going to lose, you need to lose in style, and to lose in that way, if you lose a lackluster fight, you're absolutely screwed.
This fight was boring. Someone's got to say it. Matt Riddle fought like a bum. So did Che Mills. It was boring. I don't even remember this fight happening. And, you know, it was so bad, they even fired one of the guys. All right? That's how you know it was a shit fight. Oh, God. What's next for Riddle? At this point, I don't care, man. He looked like a bum to me. That's all I have to say about this stupid fight. Word on the street.
Yeah, I was gutted that Mills was cut. Of course I was. I was gutted by Riddle's performance, but that's the way you got to win. And apparently winning isn't enough for Dana anymore when you're being cut, so I don't know how he approaches this situation. I think Mills has got some great submission of the nights going, I know that, so he can't be exactly called a boring fighter. I think if Riddle wants to get further up the line, he's got to win. And standing against Mills is never going to be a good idea. I don't know why they cut Mills, and all I can really think is I really hope he goes to Bellator. I'd love to him and guys like, there's so many good fights from there. Ben Saunders, a War Machine, anybody. You give him anybody at Bellator, any of the strikers there, and it'd be fantastic. Wolf, but whoever it is, that guy's a tank of a striker. I'd like to see him against anyone, really. He's an interesting matchup. As for Riddle, I don't have a clue who's next for him. Maybe Matt Brown, Dan Hardy winner, someone like that.
Yeah, I thought this fight was an interesting fight. It wasn't the most exciting fight anybody's ever seen, but I liked it because we saw Matt Riddle employ the game plan he needed to get the W, and Jay Mills fought a lot of those takedowns, and he did a good job. He didn't make it incredibly easy on Matt Riddle. And you know what? I thought Matt Riddle, he didn't stand with him too much, but I could have sworn I saw him get in a couple good shots on Mills in the standing as well. So I liked it. I thought it was a solid showing from Riddle. Nothing to write home to mom about, but it was good seeing Matt Riddle use that game plan. Jay Mills, Jay, I like your suggestion about him going to Bellator. I'm sure no matter what he does, there should be some fairly decent level promotion looking for his services, maybe World Series of Fighting, who knows. And what's next for Matt Riddle? It's got to be someone fairly good because, I mean, heck, I think this is his 4th win in a row now, although one of those wins, I believe Ray alluded to, which was a standing arm triangle victory against Chris Clemens, was overturned because he tested positive for having marijuana metabolites in his system, which is just so terrible for so many reasons that you can get suspended for that. But yeah, he's got 4 wins in a row now, if I'm not mistaken, and and beating increasingly difficult competition on the way. So yeah, you got to give him somewhere top 15, top 10 at least.
Sorry, I forgot to answer the question about what's next for Matt Riddle. And obviously, we did interview Matt Riddle the other week, so he did give us some suggestions of what he wanted next. Now, he didn't want to fight. He won't fight Matt Brown because I believe they're training partners, and he didn't want to fight Dan Hardy if Dan Hardy was coming off a loss to Matt Brown, and he believes Matt Brown will beat Dan Hardy. He did tell us on the show that he'd like to fight John Hathaway, so there's a possibility. It also came out at the press conference that he would like to fight Gunnar Nelson. So there's 2 possible names for Matt Riddle to fight, Gunnar Nelson or John Hathaway.
Throwing lots of names in the hat. We'll move on to a light heavyweight fight. Ryan Jimmo, who we had on our show just a few weeks ago, unfortunately lost the unanimous decision, 29-27, 29-28, 29-28. I think most would agree that James Cejudo won that fight. Yeah, sort of like the last one. Give me your thoughts on the fight and who you think James Cejudo should take on next.
Okay, for anyone that doesn't really fucking follow that closely and doesn't remember, this is the fight where the bald white dude had it in his hands. He was knocking this dude out. He had this head kick to James Cejudo's like stupid face that just knocked him down. It looked like the finish was inevitable. Ryan Jimmo was grounding and pounding this sucker, and for some reason he could not knock this fool out. It was ridiculous. It was such a close, because I bet fucking money on Ryan Jimmo, man. I thought it was going to be an easy win for him. I bet money on this fucking guy. And then he fucking can't even close the deal when it's right in front of his face, man. He was right there. All he had to do was reach out and touch it. He just had to throw that ring back into Mordor, you know what I'm saying? It was like he was running for the end zone on a breakaway, and then right when he's getting there, right near the fucking touchdown, he just stumbles over his own fucking feet, drops the ball, it goes splattering all over the field. The other team picks it up and then runs all the way back for the victory. That's how sad this fucking fight was for Ryan Jimmo. You know what's fucking next for Ryan Jimmo? He better get his ass out of that fucking, I think he's with the Black Zillions. If that's true, he's got to run, because that camp is on fire. It's burning down to the ground. It's time to get the fuck out, Ryan Jimmo. Sad to see him lose the fight and me lose a lot of money here. God damn it.
Yeah, the Black Zillions' top 2 guys, Rashad Evans and Alistair Overeem, coming off big upsets from UFC 156. Go ahead. Whoever's up.
Yeah, first of all, what you're saying about the Black Zillions, there's another interesting thing, and that's Abel Trujillo, who's fighting Khabib. That's a very interesting fight. But going back to this one, somebody had to lose. I didn't want to see someone have to lose, but the fight was very interesting. I enjoyed the fight. I have to say, I didn't like the fact James Cejudo was eventually forced to use his grappling. It did show that he has got a grappling game, albeit not the best. It did work, and it was able to bring him back to 2 other rounds that he clearly lost the first one. I didn't want to see a loser, but we got to see a loser in MMA, and very rarely do we see draws. I think a draw could have happened, given the first round could have been a 10-8. I don't know what to say. I don't know especially what's next for either guy. I didn't want to see a loser, and there was a loser. I thought Ryan Jimmo had him hurt. I thought he could have probably brought it on a little bit more. I thought Tahuna was going to win, and he did. What else is there to say? I think Tahuna's got to fight somebody a level up. I don't know what Shogun's doing now. I heard Shogun might be fighting Little Nog, but I'd like to see Tahuna and Shogun fight. I think Tahuna might even be able to put him away if Shogun fights the same way he has done in the past against people like Forrest, Vera. I think Tahuna could be a beast. He's got a chin as well, surprisingly.
For sure. You know what? I'll tell you right now. Ray and I actually had the pleasure of talking to Ryan Chimo as well. He came on MMA Mental. It was awesome. And I had picked him round 1 knockout to win this fight. And when I saw that head kick land, I thought it was just done. It was a wrap. The elbows came, there were some huge elbows, had him really hurt again. I mean, the ref really could have waved it off in the first round. But, hey, Tahuna came back. He kind of rope-a-doped Ryan Jimmo in this one. And he put it on him. He put it on him something pretty fierce, and it was a good fight. What's next for both guys? Hey, hopefully tough smashes too, like Ray suggested for Tahuna. That would be awesome. I mean, him and Minowa would be a sick fight. As for Ryan Jimmo, I like his skill set, you know, and a lot of people criticize him for having been to decisions a lot, but he had stated in a recent interview right before the fight on UFC on Fuel 7 that he was fighting 2 decisions and fight more comfortably because of the amount of money he was getting paid in smaller shows, and it was the risk to reward factor, you know, and now that he's in the UFC, he can be making so much more money. And I think he got jobbed out of some fight of the night money. Jimmo Tahuna easily could have been fight of the night. But, yeah, I think he's got a good skill set. He kind of just gassed himself out. This is his second defeat in his career. He went 0-1 to start, then won 17 in a row. So, hey, if he rattled off 17 in a row after his first loss, statistically speaking, you're not going to have that good as luck after your second loss, but who knows, maybe he can.
Obviously, this was a good fight, and it certainly was one of the fights that could have been a 10 of the fight of the night, I agree. When Jimmo landed that head kick, the head kick landed flush, and from what I could see, it looked like the head kick took Tahuna out, and then as Jimmo went in to throw ground and pound, he actually woke him back up again. I think if he hadn't thrown any ground and pound, I think that fight would have been stopped, because I think Tahuna was out from the initial strike. But obviously the ground and pound came, Tahuna went out and came back to life again. Then the last 2 rounds, obviously, as Jimmo started to slow down, Tahuna won the last 2 rounds, so I thought it was the right decision. One of the judges gave it as a 10-8 to Tahuna for one of the rounds, which was a bit of a surprise. And as what's next, obviously, for James Tahuna, I think that he should be coach on Tough Smashers 2 opposite Jimmy Manuwa. Funnily enough, it was James Tahuna that said that he wouldn't fight Jimmy Manuwa, but at the press conference when Jimmy Manuwa was asked, he said business is business, so he would be up for that. But I think James Tahuna would be mad to turn down the opportunity to coach on a season of Ultimate Fighter. And if they do a Tough Smashers 2, there's no other Aussie fighters. You know, there's a few UK guys. I mean, obviously Tom Watson's in the line right now after his win. We've just seen a few lightweight guys cut, but there's no other Australian middleweight. I mean, the only one I can think of is Kyle Noak. He might even be at welterweight now, but who's interested in seeing Kyle Noak fight at the moment? So there's no one else out there really, other from the Aussie, other than James Tahuna. I know he's from New Zealand, but he's the only one out from that region of the world, unless you go Mark Hunt. But then there's no UK heavyweight.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fight. Both guys seemed a little tentative to me. You know, weren't really going too crazy aggressive. It was a good fight, and it wasn't nearly as bad as Riddle versus Mills, where Riddle kind of was too tentative to move into Mills striking, and Mills was too tentative to move in for the takedown. But I think both guys still had you know a lot left in the gas tank when that fight was over. We'll move on, I guess, to Gunnar Nelson versus George Santiago. Nelson winning via unanimous decision. He's on a little run, undefeated, 2-0 in the UFC, beating DeMarcus Johnson. and now Jorge Santiago. I had Santiago winning the last round, but it was a story of too little, too late. And Gunnar Nelson wins the fight. What'd you guys think of the fight, and who do you guys have next for Gunnar Nelson?
I thought it was a fantastic fight. I mean, I was glad that Gunnar Nelson came out. I'm so glad he's in the UFC. He's very entertaining to watch. The tale of the fight really was the significant strikes between the two fighters. If you look at it on paper, Santiago actually was able to land a total of one more strike over Nelson. I think it was something like 40, 39, something like that. But the significant striking between them, there's about a 20% difference. When Nelson threw, he landed, and Santiago he looked like a fish out of water when he was striking. I think, I was so happy to see Gunnar Nelson back. I was glad Santiago's back in the UFC. I think he belongs there, despite the fact he's only seemed to fight elite competition. And it really was a coming out party for Gunnar Nelson, showing that he can hang with top fighters. I don't know who you give him next. I don't know who you give either guy, but I know Santiago's another guy who got cut. If I was to guess about Gunnar Nelson's opponent, I could see if the Sweden card's available. I don't think John Hathaway's got opponent. That'd be an interesting fight, especially given Gunnar Nelson's jiu-jitsu game. I'd like to see how that fight played out. I think Gunnar Nelson would be able to handle him. It would be another huge stepping stone for him. But I love the fight, and I can't wait to see what Gunnar Nelson brings to the table next time.
For sure. Gunnar Nelson, he definitely came through. This was a tough test for Jorge Santiago, and I'll tell you what, I knew the UFC was going to do this to him. They brought him in as that late replacement just to have Gunnar Nelson beat him up so they could cut him for the third time. And it's kind of fucked up to play it out that way, but hey, I saw that shit coming a mile away. Jorge should have as well. But I'll tell you what, he made it a close fight. He's got a good stand-up, Jorge, and he's got a good ground game. I mean, he went the distance with Damian Maia. Maia couldn't submit him, so you know he's got legit chops. He showed that against Nelson, who himself is a highly decorated grappler. I mean, the kid, he showed some good stuff today. He held his hands way down, though. I think he must have heard Joe Rogan saying, or no, I'm sorry, Joe Rogan. He wouldn't say something like that. It was Kenny Florian just comparing Gunnar Nelson to Lyoto Machida. He must have thought he was, because he was hanging those hands real low, and Santiago made him pay for that multiple times throughout the course of the fight. Came back, displayed some good striking of his own, damn near knocked Santiago out, showcased that he was, in fact, a superior grappler, and he deservingly won the fight. It was a good show, and, Jorge, he's out. Who knows what's next for him? Maybe some Bellator. And as for Gunnar, I mean, you got to give him somewhere. I'm saying like top 15, because he's been kind of around maybe the top 20 area with these last couple wins. So just keep moving him up the ladder slowly, because he's got to learn from this one.
I wasn't that impressed with the fight. I thought it was a pretty slow-paced fight. Gunnar Nelson reminded me a bit of like a poor man's Lyoto Machida, trying to come in with the in-and-out style. His hands were too low down, and he got caught too often, and if he does that against a big puncher, he's going to struggle. There's no doubt his grappling is fantastic, but his in-out, his elusiveness that he tried, I don't think that worked as well as what it could have done. I think it's like what Pat said and what Jay said about Santiago. It is a bit BS that he comes in on short notice. Normally when a guy comes in on short notice, they normally give him at least one more fight. And he did. I mean, it was originally Justin Edwards to face Gunnar Nelson, and I think most people would agree Nelson versus Santiago was a much more intriguing matchup than Nelson versus Edwards. That's my view anyway. What's next for Gunnar Nelson? I mean, I said it earlier on about Matt Riddle. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight, Gunnar Nelson versus Matt Riddle, and I don't think Matt Riddle will be able to lie on Gunnar Nelson for 3 minutes, for 3 rounds like he did with Che Mills, because Nelson's ground game's too good. But it will be interesting to see how Nelson does against a wrestler, because we've seen a lot of jiu-jitsu guys struggle against wrestlers. I'm all for seeing Nelson versus Riddle. A point on the Sweden card. I think the Sweden card's too soon, with it only being about 6 weeks away. I also think that card's full now. I think they've got the full lineup sorted, so I don't think we'll be seeing Nelson on that card, unfortunately.
Gunnar Nelson, hats off to you. He made me a lot of fucking money this weekend. but I didn't expect it to be won in this manner. I thought he was just a ground guy only. So he has the fight. So he kept it standing. Credit to him. It was nice to see him actually go the distance on his feet. But at the same time, he was fighting in a manner that made me just worry that it was like the whole time you're watching Gunnar Nelson fight, you're like, oh man, this dude's about to get knocked out. This guy's about to get knocked out. He had that. His hands were like everybody was saying, just down low. And he ain't the kind of person that can pull that off, as we saw, man. The strikes were pretty much, it was blow for blow, man. That was not, nobody dominated, so don't put your hands down, all right, motherfucker. Gunnar Nelson, he got the victory. It wasn't the most exciting fight, but it was to me because I actually had money on it. If it wasn't for the money factor and the betting, this would have been a pretty boring fucking fight. What's next for Nelson? Fuck it. I want to see a just ridiculous super fight go down between him and Damian Maia. Just see a straight up jiu-jitsu fucking match. That would be the best. That's all I got to say.
Jake?
Oh, sorry.
Somebody's muted.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted talking. Gunnar Nelson, it's going to be interesting when he raises up higher and higher and higher to see how high he can get. I say put him against a decent welterweight for his next fight and see how he fares. It would be interesting if he got over the next couple of hurdles in the welterweight division and got one of those really good wrestlers up there in the top 20. That would be a lot of fun to see. The next fight before we get to the main and the co-main was Jimmy Poster Boy Manuwa defeating Cyril Diabate via TKO. He did not want to keep going on after that first round. Just more of these crazy assaults by Jimmy Manuwa. He is looking incredible as hell. Just putting a beating on guys. Who next for Manuwa? I totally agree. I think James Tahuna is the perfect match. Tough smashes too. And yeah, I guess those were my fight thoughts. What about you guys? Patrick?
I thought it was a fantastic fight. Cyril Diabate, he's no joke. He's showed a recently improved ground game. We don't really know what level Manuwa was at with his ground game. I mean, although he looked real good against Kingsbury, who's another super strong light heavyweight. And he's just been terrorizing. For him to defeat the big kickboxer Diabate the way he did, yeah, it was a TKO due to injury. But I mean, what does that mean besides the fact he fucked him up so bad that the doctors wouldn't let him continue fighting? I mean, he in a 5-minute period, he fucking made the doctors stop that fight because he broke something in his leg or fucked up a tendon or a ligament or some shit. Like that's a solid TKO in my book. Great showing. He's climbing up the ranks, man. You got to give him I can't even think. I know Bader just got signed for his fight with friggin' Glover Teixeira, so that those guys are tied up. Everything looks kind of tied up like heavyweight right now. I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know, but he's definitely on the rise. He's got to get a solid top 10 opponent.
Jimmy Manuwa is an absolute beast, and I think me and Jay spoke to him before he signed with the UFC, and I kind of had a feeling after speaking to him, because this is the guy who turned the UFC down on 2 occasions. You don't do that unless you know that your time's going to come. And he told us he turned it down because he wants to make sure he was ready for when the UFC finally came knocking, and he obviously felt he was ready. I mean, what he did to Cole Kingsbury, he brutalised him. It was unbelievable. And then this weekend, there's lots of rumours about Diabate. I mean, from where I was sitting, the way they were checking the leg, it looked like he had fractured his leg. But obviously, the official is that he got a calf injury. But the other question is, did he even want to fight anymore? Did he want to come out there and keep taking that punishment? Because his commitment and his heart's been questioned before in the past. People have said he's not committed to the sport anymore. And the leg kicks were just annihilating him. And I don't know if he really wanted to, after that first round, I don't know if he really wanted to be in there. As for next opponent, obviously I've already stated what I want. I've told Dana White to his face what I'd like to know. I've already stated what I'd like to. I'd love to see him coach on Tough Smashes. I think, the exposure would do him good because he is going to be a big prospect in the future. And James Tahuna would be perfect opposite him. Obviously, Tahuna said he doesn't want that fight, but I think they'd both be crazy to turn down if they got offered to offer on Tough Smashes. If that didn't happen, there's some great guys, some great strikers up there that he could match up well with. We've got Little Nog coming off of a big win over Rashad Evans. You've got Rashad Evans, who's just had a big loss. You've got Shogun, who hasn't fought since he lost to Gustafsson. And as far as I'm aware, he hasn't got anyone else lined up. I might be wrong, but I don't think he has. So, yeah, there is so many good fights for him if you want to put him against someone else who's going to strike. And it seems at that top of that division, probably other than Phil Davis, it mainly is strikers, where most divisions it's wrestlers. But this division seems different. It's mainly guys that like to strike, which makes it very interesting for Mano, because Mano's striking is brutal.
Yeah, Surreal Diabate, I've got to say, it's sad to see a guy go out looking like a bum, like he did. The fucking retirement effort. I mean, let's face it, he probably was not. I find it hard to believe that he just realized going in the second round that he wasn't in fighting condition. No, he probably knew that a long time ago. He just stepped in there for the money. I don't respect that. I mean, come on. He just, I mean, it's not exactly throwing the fight, but, come on. He went in there and quit. So yeah, but credit to Jimmy Manoa, though. He's definitely looking good. I bet money on him. I made money on him. I still believe, though, at the end of the day, that Jimmy Manoa, you put him up against a guy like Vinny Magalhaes, and Jimmy Manoa is not going to have a goddamn answer. He's going to look like Igor, worse than Igor. Why the hell didn't Igor get cut? That's all I got to say.
The fight itself, I've got to agree with Rams. It was pretty appalling, actually. I don't think either man was either able to explode on the other. Made it a very uninteresting fight. I'd like to have seen the fight last longer, but if an injury is an injury, then what can you do about it? Apparently, I doubt it's money. I seriously doubt it's money. From Cyril Diabate's win over whoever he fought last, the UFC 154 payout for him was $6,000 to show and $6,000 to win. So I don't think he's on any major money. I mean, it sounds like he's fighting on, can money. I remember Papi Abedi and James Head getting that sort of money when they first started as well. Cyril Diabate's been in the UFC for a long time now. As for Jimmy Manoa, I think it's an interesting position where he stands. But I've got one fighter I'd love to see him fight, purely because if Matt Hamill was able to go out there with a wrestling-based game plan, Jimmy Manoa would struggle. And if Matt Hamill was an idiot and decided to strike with him, he'd get hurt. So for that reason, I think Matt Hamill should be the guy he fights next. I think it's an interesting fight. I think Manoa does get taken down. I think he has problems getting back up. That's pretty much all I've got to say on that fight.
Definitely, yeah. That wasn't the most exciting fight in the world either. I was looking at Nelson Santiago. Jesus Christ, yeah, that Manoa Diabate fight. It wasn't exciting in the fact that you knew who was going to win the fight, but as far as effective striking goes and someone getting their ass kicked, it was plenty exciting. The reason I was addressing that is going into the co-main event of Cub Swanson, Dustin Poirier, it just wasn't, it hadn't really lived up to its potential. You had 3 boring decisions and 1 5-minute ass kicking. Cub Swanson, Dustin Poirier, really put that excitement into the main card, which it needed. Obviously, the Watson-Nedkov fight, won fight of the night deservedly, but if not for that, I think this would have won Swanson and Poirier. Poirier hung in there pretty well, but Cub Swanson is looking better and better and better. His striking was so effective. He was really adept on the ground, getting good positions, being quick. Swanson looked excellent against the guy in Dustin Poirier, who is an elite dude. He's one of the best fighters in his division. It's just another big step up for Cub, and thinking what's next for him. Frankie Edgar says he wants a 5-round fight against Cub, and I think Frankie versus Cub would make for an excellent main card of a Fuel or an FX card. He's now won 4 fights in a row. Root Pearson, Oliveira, and Poirier all impressively. I had it 30-27 Cub. And I think Cub is maybe one, if not one, definitely 2 wins away from a title shot. What do you guys think?
It was a fantastic fight, and like you said about the previous fights before, there was some slow fights on the card. I don't think Jim O'Dahuna was that. I think that was a good fight to watch, but obviously the Riddle fight and the Gunnar Nelson fights weren't great. So this was nice to get another explosive fight. I'll be honest with you, going into this fight, I didn't see how this fight could be boring because they're just both such explosive fighters. I'd picked Cub Swanson to win. I'd gone back and forth all week and eventually settled on Cub Swanson, which I was glad I did. I mean, but both guys look good in this fight. I don't know. You can't not help but like Cub Swanson. There's just something about him that, you know, he's appealing to fans. He goes out for the finish. He's had some great finishes. And it was funny. One of the things that they asked him at the press conference was they said there was a bit of talking between you and Dustin Poirier. What was saying and what were you saying? And Dustin Poirier had said something like, "Oh, you know, I can't believe you're taking this from me." And Swanson said, "Yeah, I just want it more than you, but I still like you though, bro." So I thought that was quite funny. But as for next, Cub Swanson, I mean, the fact that he's got someone like Frankie Edgar calling him out, that just shows you how good Cub Swanson is. And yeah, I mean, I think that could even be a pay-per-view headliner personally, Cub Swanson, if they had a good, strong co-main. But I'd happily watch Cub Swanson and Frankie Edgar go for 5 rounds. And I think if Frankie Edgar stood for 5 rounds, Swanson could actually be the one to put Edgar away, because Swanson's an absolute beast on the feet.
Yeah, I don't know, man, about this Cub Swanson. I gotta be honest, I didn't bet this fight. Consequently, I didn't find myself giving a damn about it or paying too much attention to it. To me, I mean, it was a lot of technical skills. It was a good back and forth fight, but to me, it just kind of dragged on. I don't know about you guys. I just looked at it as a fight, and it was a goddamn skipper on the album. You know, the CD. You know, there's that one track. It was filler, man. It was filler. What's next for Cub? If Frankie Edgar wants to fight him, that's fine by me, as long as they make a stipulation that the loser gets cut from the UFC. All right. For one, I think it's time for Frankie Edgar to be on the chopping block. And number 2, Cub Swanson. I believe he was even mentioning at the press conference before this fight, or maybe it was already the post, I don't know. He mentioned that he was even thinking about retiring soon. Once a guy starts talking about retiring while he's still fighting, you're done in my books, man. Good luck me ever betting your ass again. I just don't respect that. He said something about I got metal plates in my head, you know. Yeah, but don't be announcing your retirement before it happens. Don't go Dan Hardy style, or else nobody's gonna bet you. That's the bottom line. And by bet you, I mean that applies to like not just money. You know, like who's gonna root for you? Who's gonna be like, this is my guy to go all the way when he's already talking about throwing his fucking towel in? I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
As much as I hate to say it, I actually kind of agree. Once the fight changed between Cub Swanson and Dennis Siver, got to Cub Swanson versus Dustin Poirier, to me it was just like, they're just giving Cub Swanson a fight. Dustin Poirier, you know, he couldn't even stand with Korean Zombie. He eventually got submitted by the Korean Zombie. I don't even know why I thought that fight was going to be competitive. I'm glad I did pick Cub Swanson. I'm going to sum this up pretty quickly. What I think is next for Cub, I still want to see that Dennis Siver fight. But if he is going to fight Frankie Edgar, good luck to him. I think he gets wrestled. I think he gets taken down. However, I would be excited to see Frankie Edgar in a 15-minute fight again. Seems like he's good at losing that first couple of rounds, and in a 5-round fight, it'd have to be a very different fighter. I still, right now, want to see Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard. I don't care what people say. I want to see that in a 3-round fight. I don't care if Frankie Edgar can get the finish in the 4th. I don't care if he can win the 4th, 5th, 3rd, whatever. I want to see those two go at it in a 3-round fight. That's it.
Jay coming out swinging.
Yeah, I liked Swanson versus Poirier. I mean, I think Poirier is a tough test. He's definitely one of the top guys at 145, I'd say. And for Swanson to beat him like he did, you know, it was a good showing. It was a tough fight, good 15 minutes, and you know, Swanson didn't crack. There was a lot of good back and forth. Definitely a fighter than that candidate. What's next for both? I mean, Frankie Edgar, that's a hell of a fight for Cub Swanson. Cub, that's my boy. He's representing Palm Springs. So, I got to back him all the way. And, one thing I got to say, that's a tough fight for him if they were to make him versus Edgar. But I would give the power advantage to Swanson. Swanson's been knocking some people out. And I think he has that potential, and he's got Greg Jackson's camp on his side. So he's got the best coaches. If they can put together a game plan, or if anybody can put together a game plan for Frankie Edgar, it would certainly be Greg Jackson's camp. So, hey, that could be a good fight. As for Poirier, feel bad like the guy. He's a good fighter. You can tell he's got the drive, but he came up against another top-ranked guy in the division and just fell a little bit short. He's definitely still easily in the top 10 for 145 in the UFC, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think he'll get moved too far down the ladder due to this loss. It wasn't like he got knocked out in the first. It was a pretty close fight. So I think he'll stay in definitely the top 10, maybe get a top 15 guy in this next fight.
For sure, I totally agree. I think Poirier is a really, really top guy. He has lost his last couple of fights, but they were against who I think should be a couple of the top people thought about for title contendership, Korean Zombie and Cub Swanson. So, we'll move on to Renan Barão versus Michael McDonald. Renan Barão really kind of dominated the fight. There were a couple moments where it looked like Mayday was shining, and he definitely had his moments. Michael, you've got to respect him. He's the youngest fighter. I looked it up. I looked up all the cards, not stuff like UFC 84 Ill Will, but cards named after fighters like UFC on Fuel, Barão versus McDonald, fighters who make the title of a card. Michael McDonald, the youngest fighter ever to get title credits on a card. The previous was John Jones when he fought Bader at UFC or Vera on UFC Live. UFC Live, Jones Vera. I think he was about 7 months older. Both of them were 22 at the time, but you got to give him props. He has a bright UFC future. But Renan Barão, he's one of the top pound for pound guys. I've had him on my top 10 pound for pound the last year and a half. I think he is the interim champion, and he defeated Michael Mayday McDonald, 4th round submission, arm triangle choke, about 4 minutes into that round. It really proves Barão is very good. He's really handled Faber and McDonald very thoroughly. Before we talk about Renan Barão, because that's a whole nother topic on his future. Before we talk about Renan Barão, give me your thoughts on the fight and who you think is next for Michael McDonald. Obviously, a lot of guys in that bantamweight division. I'm trying to think of guys who aren't scheduled for fights, but it seems like a bunch of guys, Caraway, Mizugaki, Pickett, and Easton are fighting soon. Scott Jorgensen, I think, is available, just fought a couple months ago. Hey, a lot of people for Michael McDonald. I would say, give him a few months to rest up and give him the winner of Pickett versus Easton. Both of them coming off of losses as well, but I think both of them are respectable bantamweights, and the winner of that, I would guess it would be Pickett. Pickett McDonald would be a fun fight. Give me your thoughts on the fight and who you think is next for Mayday.
Yeah, Renan Barão is the real deal. I'll have to admit that right now. I did have Michael McDonald in this fucking fight. I thought he might step up and actually do what he usually does, but I saw he was fighting apprehensive. It looked like his game plan was a counter Renan Barão, which no, man, you take the fight to that guy because his whole thing is setups, man. Setups with Renan Barão always. Michael McDonald did screw up. I knew it was all over when he came out in the walkout to that stupid Jesus song. That Jesus is my friend. He's in the ring. And where was Jesus when?
I think Vitor sung that song. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that song stunk. All right. So does. Well, I'm not going to bash Jesus right now, but that song stunk. All right. And I knew it was all over then and there because Michael Mayday. Where was Jesus when Renan Barão was choking you out? All right. He was nowhere to be found. He was like Bigfoot. But yeah, he did kind of give up. He gave up a little bit there, man. After he got kicked in the face with that front kick, even McDonald knew it was all over. You know. So yeah, what's next for McDonald? He'll probably get the winner of Faber versus Menjivar. So I'm guessing he'll fight Uriah Faber next. Fuck it. Let's make that fight next. Fuck it. And but he will come back. He will get another title shot. I think he will be champion sometime. He just had to learn his fucking lesson the hard way.
Yeah, the fight was interesting. I think Ramses did bring up some good points. He did trouble Renan Barão. We haven't seen Renan Barão rocked as such, and I think that's the closest we've come in at least a while. Michael McDonald, now he did impress me. As you guys said, he's very young. He's still got a long way to go. You know, when you're fighting for a title at the age of 21, 22, you've only got one way to go, and that's up unless you get a Jonathan Goulet chin or something like that. Who should he fight next? An interesting point that Ramses mentioned is Uriah Faber. I heard Uriah Faber is fighting for his contract. If Faber loses this fight, he'll be cut from the UFC. That's apparently out Dana's mouth, and that should be the word on the street, but I'll say it for Ramses instead. Because that's what's going around, and the UFC is looking to cut 100 fighters, and Uriah Faber, you know, what's he done? He hasn't beaten a champion in ages, and apparently that's what you need to do to keep a contract, from the sounds of it. Even though he won his last fight by submission, I think he submitted Brian Bowles, so whatever. I don't know who you give him next, but maybe I see the Pickett fight going down. I'm not really sure. Maybe even Mizugaki if he can get the win over Brian Caraway. I think Mizugaki's due something better, though, considering he seems to have won the last two and then controversially lost the last two. It'd be interesting. I don't know who they give him next, but probably Faber if he wins, or even Menjivar if he loses. I don't know. Somebody in that area.
I thought it was a good fight. McDonald, he got Barão hurt, it looked like, in the first round. He landed some good shots in the clinch. Definitely didn't seem like he was able to get his boxing going like he normally does. But Barão, I mean, hey, he just showed he's no joke. I mean, I think we learned that a little bit when he beat Uriah Faber the way he did. That was a good fight, another good show from Barão as well. Man, I'll tell you what, Dominic Cruz, if he can come back healthy, hopefully, that's who Barão gets come summertime. Hopefully they can do that. If not, I mean, I don't know who he'll fight. He's already beat everybody in the UFC bantamweight division, essentially. I mean, he beat Pickett, he beat McDonald, he beat Faber. Like, who beats any of those three besides Barão in the UFC bantamweight division? I mean, there's not a one. Not a one guy that can really step to that. So, and that kind of leads me to Michael McDonald and what you do with him. I mean, I think he smokes most people at 135. Who knows where he goes from here? I mean, who can you give him at 135 that wouldn't just be a total massacre? I mean, maybe him versus Johnny Eduardo. I don't know what Johnny Eduardo has lined up right about now. But, he's a devastating Muay Thai striker. It'll be good to see him up against Michael McDonald's more boxing-oriented striking style. So I'd like to see that matchup.
It was a good fight. And, I mean, I had Renan Barão to win. Funny enough, I had Renan Barão to win by submission, but I got the round wrong. But it was a beautiful submission. I mean, he got the hold on and he held it, and he was putting his thumbs up to rest saying he's all right. And, of course, he just kept on moving his body around and he got that squeezing tighter. And in the end, of course, he had to tap. But, the fight kind of went the way I expected it to do. We knew that McDonald was going to be tough because McDonald's a good fighter. But Renan Barão at the minute is looking on another level to the rest of that division. And I think he's looking on another level to Dominic Cruz as well. But that's just my humble opinion. Next for, obviously, Renan Barão, if it's not Dominic Cruz. For me, if it's not Dominic Cruz, the number one contender, I think, should be Eddie Wineland because he beat Brad Pickett in a close fight, and also he knocked out Scott Jorgensen as well. So I would give Eddie Wineland the next title shot if it's not going to be Dominic Cruz. For Michael McDonald, you've got, the names you said really. Uriah Faber would be a good fight, Scott Jorgensen would be a good fight, and as would Uriah Faber, Scott Jorgensen, and what's his name? Brad Pickett. They'll all be good fights. Me and Patrick interviewed Francisco Rivera last week, and he said he wanted a top 10 opponent. One of the names he mentioned was Michael McDonald. And interestingly enough, MMA Math, they both faced Edwin Figueroa. And Rivera beat Figueroa a lot more impressive than what McDonald did. Take from that for what it's worth. But yeah, I think ideally it would either be Faber, Pickett, or Jorgensen. If Faber and Pickett, but obviously both won. And for Barao, I reckon Wineland if it's not going to be Dominic Cruz.
Certainly, yeah. And I guess, if we went over that whole mess about Cruz, because Cruz might not be ready until the end of the year. He might not be ready till early 2014. That second surgery put him, which was in December of 2012, I believe. There's a 6 to 9 month recovery time. And after that, you're obviously going to need a 2 or 3 month long training camp for a fight. So we will see when Dominic Cruz is able to step back in there, and I agree. Barrao's really handled that bantamweight division, really sort of beat everybody. Eddie Wineland is the only guy he hasn't beaten, it seems like, because Pickett, Faber, McDonald, like we just mentioned, Barrao, all put away. And before we move on to the news, I guess, now that we're done breaking down UFC on Fuel 7, Jay this week is hosting Guess That Tweet, the MMA podcast, whooping up on Team MMA Mental 12-6. We actually have the 4 top competitors playing this week. Myself, Patrick, Ramses, and Ray, all with 8, 3, 3, and 2 points, respectively. Jay, I'll let you take it away. It's all you, buddy.
Thanks a lot, man. I've been the John Fitch of the Guess That Tweet for a while. So I guess I'll be hosting this week, so it'll be a bit different. But I'm going to kick things off, if you guys are all ready. Is everybody ready?
Ready.
All right, that's all right then. Well, somebody else is going to be second this week, so that'll be a surprise to all of you. Right, the first tweet is from somebody who was cut. I'll give you a heads up. Right. Was just cut from the UFC today. I want to thank the fans and say I gave it my all. No regrets. Right. The guys who might have said it: Che Mills, John Fitch, Jacob Volkman, or Terry Ettim.
Can you say those names again, please? I was expecting someone else's name to come out.
Okay, no worries. Che Mills, John Fitch, Jacob Volkman, or Terry Ettim.
Out of all of them, I think the most likely to say that would be Terry Ettim.
I'm going to go with Jacob Volkman.
Ooh, I'll go with Ettim.
All right, well, the only one I'm going to rule out is John Fitch, because I looked at his Twitter recently, and I don't think he said that. So if Team MMA Mental are both going Ettim, I'll go in solidarity with Ramsey's Team MMA podcast. We will go with Volkman, the glass-sectomologist.
Well, your dissection was right. It was definitely not John Fitch. It wasn't Che Mills either. It wasn't Terry Ettim.
Yeah.
It was...
That's BS. We all know Volkman hasn't got any fans.
But yeah, well, no regrets as well, apparently, even though, he got beaten a few times.
And he's a pile of crap. And he speaks like a knob.
Early lead.
It's only going to get worse, guys, so let's go through this. Right. Number 2. Crushed an apple with my bare hand due to great sessions with the DFX Sports Powerball. Hashtag grip strength. Hashtag Powerball. Number 1, it could have been Ian McCall, Akira Khorasani, John Anik, or Bob Sapp.
Man, I'm trying to think of, like I'm trying to picture who would sit around and just be squeezing the Powerball. I don't think Anik would be doing it. He's too chill. I like the thought of Ian McCall just sitting around freaking out like the end of that first Mighty Mouse fight. Just like grabbing those Powerballs, going wild with them. So, I'll go with Ian McCall. Fuck it. I'm stoned.
Yeah. Patrick?
Terribly sorry. Snake order gets me every time. Man, I'll go with John Anik just because I know it's the obvious curveball, but I'll swing at it. I'll go with John Anik.
I got no fucking idea, so I'll just go with stupid Bob Sapp.
My first instinct was Bob Sapp as well. I don't think any of them could do it. I don't think they've got the strength to do it. But Bob Sapp could crush anything, and then he'd probably take a dive.
Well, Bob Sapp did crush an apple on the set of Jay Leno. However, it wasn't Bob Sapp. It wasn't the curveball that was John Annett. Well done. Somebody had to go for it. It wasn't Ian McCall. It wasn't Borisani.
Wow.
Right, this is where I guess the tweet goes to the point of no return. Right, tweet number 3. I caught this one a day after Valentine's Day, so it does count. Right, tweet number 3. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And then this was followed by a picture of a ball sack in the shape of a love heart. Was it either Felice Herrig, the orgasmic Nick Ring, Miguel Torres, or Marcus Brimage?
I'm going to go Felice Herrig.
Oh, shit. That's pretty homo. I'll go Nick Ring.
I'll mix it up. I'll go Marcus Brimage.
Was it an actual ball sack?
Yeah, you got to check this tweet out, man. It cracked me up for hours.
I don't know. All right, so all right, it was Brimage, Ring, Herrig, and who else?
Herrig, Ring, Torres, and Brimage.
I'll go with Torres. Fuck it.
Okay. Well, it was not Marcus Brimage. It was not Miguel Torres. It was indeed the orgasmic Nick Ring, as it was not Felice Herrig.
I should have known. You love that guy.
It fucking cracked me up, man. You got to see this ball sack. It's almost perfectly in the shape of a heart. And I wouldn't normally say you have to see this ball sack.
Nah. Okay.
Homo.
Right. Well, after that embarrassment, right. Well, I got some motivational speakers now. So, the tweet was, don't worry about the people who hate you. Worry about the ones who pretend to love you. It's a very nice tweet there. Was it Josh Koscheck, Henzo Gracie, the legendary James Head, or Phil Baroni?
I'm going to go with James Head just because last time you said some weird shit before Nick Ring, and this time you're saying some weird shit before James Head, and I know you love James Head very much. So yeah, James Head.
Oh, I'm going to... Oh, shoot, can you read those again, DJ?
Yeah, sure. Josh Koscheck, Henzo Gracie, the legendary James Head, and Phil Baroni.
Okay. I will go with Henzo Gracie.
Holy shit. Yeah, oh, damn. I don't know too much about the Phil Baroni. I was leaning Henzo. Fuck. It's crunch time. My first natural instinct is Henzo Gracie. I have to copy the answer.
I love the fact that Jay's talking about ball sacks and head. It does worry me a little bit, but and he's on a podcast with 4 dudes, so that is a bit weird. I'm going to go with Josh Koscheck. He's got a lot of haters, and he's always tweeting bullshit, so I'll go Josh Koscheck.
I said the show was going to reach the point of no return. I'm glad you guys gave me the chance to. Right, it wasn't Phil Baroni. It wasn't the legendary James Head, although he is still legendary. It wasn't Henzo Gracie. He was talking a lot of crap, so it was Josh Koscheck.
I've got a point. Yay!
Right. I guess this takes us to number 5. I don't know whether we're going to reach a... Are we going to reach a tiebreaker? I think Rams is on 2, Jake's on 1, Bray's on 1, and Patrick's on 0.
Can Ramses go first, so me and Jake can pick a different answer to Ramses, so we've got a chance of tie-breaking?
Mm-hmm.
Is that alright, Ramses?
Yeah, whatever. I'm going to win no matter what.
Cool.
Well, this one's a hard one, so I'd like to see a tiebreaker. Right, the tweet is hashtag fuck TRT users. Was it Michael Bisping, Tom Watson, Rob Sinclair, or Chael Sonnen? Ramses.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a tiebreaker. Rob Sinclair.
Well, Watson was quite vocal about it on the at the press conference, so we're going to go for Watson.
What were the other choices?
Bisping and Sonnen.
I'll take Bisping, I guess. Patrick?
Yeah, I'll I'll take Watson.
Of course, the curveball was Chael Sonnen. It wasn't him. It wasn't Tom Watson. It wasn't Michael Bisping. So that means Ramses storms this week and gets the third point.
Well done, Ramses.
Still undefeated.
Congratulations, Ramses.
Undisputed. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out
Someone
here.
use Mike.
Ramses knows the most about ball sacks.
And head.
The only reason I picked that is because I picked the gayest person in that list. And I'd just like to thank my sponsor, Marijuana, always fueling me, keeping me primed and ready. And I guess Twitter, because I'm on that a lot. And the MMA podcast, MMA Mental, Jay, Patrick, and Dave, even though he's not here, Chris, even though he's dead to us. Or at least he's probably really dead in actual life, one of those. Just to everybody, thanks. I'll defend my title again next week. Try to step it up, guys. Seriously, it's getting pretty embarrassing.
Indeed, yeah. Chris, I think, is actually going to be on next week's roundtable, making a brief return from his sabbatical to the deep Middle East. But yeah, Team MMA podcast running away with it, 13-6. Ramsey's taking the outright number 2 spot on the win total sheet. Now with 4 wins. Myself with 8, Patrick 3, Ray 2, Dave 1, Chris 1, Jay with none. And yeah, next week Ray is going to be compiling the tweets, so join us next week after we break down UFC 157 for Guess That Tweet. And we'll move on to a little bit of news action. Probably the most surprising news of the week was the UFC cutting a lot of guys, including a few notable guys, including a guy who went 14-3-1 in the UFC. John Fitch cut from the UFC along with a lot of other guys. A few British guys cut. You had Edom, Sass, and Mills cut. You had Mike Russo cut. You had Vladimir Matyushenko cut. Josh Grisby, Ulysses Gomez, Wagner Prado, Jacob Volkman, Jorge Santiago. A lot of dudes cut. But obviously the name that sticks out from that list, John Fitch, he is 1-2-1 in his last fights. But you got to keep in mind, dude's 14-3-1 in the UFC. Dana White came out yesterday or today, I'm not sure, I read the article today, but saying that John Fitch is on the way down, and we'll probably see a lot of these guys join Bellator. Dana White's come out saying he's gonna cut over 100 guys. It's gonna be cool seeing Fitch go over to Bellator and fight Askren, but other than that, a lot of guys I was pretty hyped about. Sass, deadly from his back, getting cut. Russo, he's lost 3 fights in his career, even though 2 of them were his last 2 fights. A lot of guys I think that could beat current UFC fighters, but this is just the UFC really trying to trim the fat. Before we talk about why, motives of the cuts, what cuts on this list bother you? Jay?
Loads of them. Pretty much all of them, to be honest. I don't like the fact that anybody has to leave the UFC, but I know that guys have to. I think Vladimir Matyushenko should retire. It's probably in his best interest now. However, I'd still like to see him in the UFC. I think he's a solid gatekeeper, like most of these guys are. I think John Fitch and Jacob Volkman do upset me, mainly because they are solid gatekeepers. If you can't handle that level of wrestling, you don't deserve to be fighting guys in the top tier of the division. You'll just end up on your back and look like a fool. How the hell did Dan Hardy get a title shot? It's because he fought no wrestlers. The closest he came is Mike Swick. He's not exactly a wrestler. It pulls me to see some of these guys cut. Che Mills, as you mentioned, Paul Sass, dangerous off his back. Paul Sass and Che Mills have got big UK fan bases, and that's what UK guys want to see when they come to when they go to UK events. So it sucks that he got cut. I'm gutted that more fighters aren't protesting this. Like I said earlier, Uriah Faber might be next on the chopping block if he loses to Menjivar, which will be awful.
Word on the street.
And the other thing, man, you just made me forget it. Why are you throwing me off, Jay? Okay.
Boobs.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I just had it there. Yeah, John Fitch, I think he's tied for second most wins in the UFC. Is it next to Matt Hughes? I think Matt Hughes. I'll have to check that out, but it's something like that. Ray will probably know best. But yeah, it sucks that people are getting cut, but eventually it has to happen. I'm just sucks that another 100 fighters are going to get cut as well.
Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of these cuts as well, just because if you want to cut 100 fighters, I understand that. But you're cutting the wrong guys. I mean, a lot of these guys, even though they may be on losing streaks, a lot of these guys are on losing streaks to the best. I mean, Matt Yushchenko, he's only lost to Gustafsson and, Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader's a top-quality opponent. I mean, he's not a cannon anyways. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's got NCAA D1 credentials, solid hands. A lot of these guys did not deserve to get cut. They bring in a lot worse guys in just about every single card. If anything, they need more fighters so that they can have more options and more room to grow. The whole John Fitch thing, I mean, you've got to think that's politics. That's just pure politics. You do not cut a guy who's 14-3-1 in the UFC. I mean, especially he started out, I think he went on like that 8-0 run, then went 8-1, and I think he ended up like 13-1 at one point. I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous. I don't agree with a lot of it.
The cuts were obviously surprising. Who, out of interest, who does John Fitch train with? What camp does he train out of?
He's out of AKA.
That's right, American Kickboxing. See, I think obviously he sent a clear message by cutting John Fitch, and he doesn't want the boring game plans. And straight away, I'm thinking of Jackson fighters. I think there's an undercurrent there with Greg Jackson, and he's going to be looking at Greg Jackson fighters. There's been a message sent out about Clay Guida today, saying that he doesn't want fighters that are going to run away, and that's what Guida did in his last fight. He said fans don't want to see that. For me, the only cut that that I thought was really, really bad was the John Fitch one. I mean, I can see the reason for all the others, but John Fitch cut made absolutely no sense because the guy is one of the best in the division. He's a probably top 3 in the division. Where everyone else that's cut, none of them are top 10, and none of them are ever going to fight for a title. That's just my opinion. Obviously, it's a shame to see the UK guys go, but Terry Etienne looked absolutely awful at the weekend. He didn't turn up for that fight. Obviously, that kick had a bigger effect than what we thought. Sass never got going off his guard, and he's shown a weakness to wrestlers. And like Jay said about the wrestlers, you know, if you can't go against the wrestlers, then you are obviously going to struggle. He was disappointed with Chain Mills because he said it afterwards, didn't he, that Chain Mills just gave up. So he was disappointed with that anyway. But yeah, the only one that really, really bugged me, the only cut that I thought was ridiculous was the John Fitch cut. All the other ones I could understand the reasoning behind them.
Oh, the worst cut by far on this list was Wagner Prado, man, Caldero. This kid never got a fair shot, I gotta say. His UFC debut, Prado's UFC debut, was against Phil Davis, Arsenio Hall, a top fucking 10 guy, arguably a top 5 guy in the fucking division. They fucking threw Wagner Prado in there. You know, first he got poked with the eye. He comes back, gets submitted straight up. All right, that's he lost to a top 10 guy. And then he gets one more fight. Gets submitted. Doesn't look too great. But let's face it, that was his first actual real competitive fight in the UFC. And then they're cutting him after his second loss. I don't agree with that one bit, especially after fucking 9 or 10 wins in a row, undefeated going into it. I mean, I don't fucking get this one. Maybe he's not ready for the UFC. Maybe that's the case. But we'll see Prado in fucking Bellator or something like that. I'm sure of it, and he's gonna whoop that ass and be back. I'm almost positive. Ray, what you had something to say about Prado? What's up?
That guy that Prado fought was a welterweight, and the guy took the fight, I think, on days' notice. I mean, Prado looked awful in that fight, and admittedly, Davis was not a match for him, but if he can't even beat a welterweight, that's why he got cut. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was a mismatch, man. It was a total mismatch. It was ridiculous. He didn't get a fair shake. They should have given him one more fight. I
don't think he's shown enough to get one more fight. I really don't. Losing to a welterweight when you're a light heavyweight, where can you go from there?
Oh, man, look, he just has a little bit of jitters. I mean, that's what I saw in both of his fights. The dude was nervous, And yeah, he shouldn't be. You know, he should be ready to go in out there. I think he deserved at least one more fight though before cutting him. One more. You know what I'm saying? That when you got guys like Tardy still out there and Guida, fuck that.
Yeah, the way he really emotionally reacted to the eye poke and then the loss in the rematch. You could tell he had a little bit too much nerves and too much invested in the fight. A name no one brought up, Jay Huron. You know, he was on this incredible I think 11-1 run, and his only loss was a split decision against Ben Askren that could have gone either way, and a lot of people thought Huron won. He comes into the UFC, he goes 0-2, but it's a unanimous decision against Ellenberger, and that recent vicious knockout to Woodley, who Woodley could have done that to anybody. Woodley could have done that to Martin Kampmann. He has some scary power, so I think the Huron cut is a little premature as well. Before we move on, why do you think they're trying to trim the fat, cut down all the fighters? I mean, I don't know why you change a good thing. I know the UFC has a lot of fighters. I don't know what the list is, but I'm sure it's 300 or 400. No, I think it should be more of a pressing issue to fill in divisions like the flyweight division and the women's bantamweight division before worrying about cutting guys like John Fitch, who you just recently promoted on a UFC primetime show or a UFC countdown show, talking about John Fitch has the greatest submission defense in UFC history, and then cut him after he loses? Really? He doesn't even get submitted, but I don't understand it. Really is not making a lot of sense to me. Can any of y'all make sense out of it? It's really, it's kind of driving me nuts. It's bullshit, man.
If I've got to be the guy to come in here and give you an explanation, and I've got to be the guy to give you an argument for, you know how they sometimes do that at schools or whatever, they split you apart and say, is it a good thing and is it a bad thing? Look, if I have to say it's a good thing, I think if they're going to develop divisions like the flyweight and women's bantamweights and strawweight and other women's divisions, I think it's never nice to see fighters lose their job, as that's appalling. But there are still other options to make money out there. I mean, you've got Bellator, you've got, as Ray's now supporting, XFC, you've got WSOF, World Series of Fighting, you've got ONE FC. There is other companies that have good financial backing right now. The UFC might have signed too many fighters with buying other organisations. However, it's still rubbish. It's still appalling, and I don't think they're going to develop these divisions. I still don't think we're at a stage in MMA where there is any good flyweight fighters other than the ones that the UFC have already acquired. The women's bantamweight has about 3, 4, 5 famous women. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm just trying to make an argument for the sake of it. There is really nothing that can be said that's already been said. I think it's a stupid idea, and John Fitch is still a top 10, 12 competitor, and everybody knows what he's going to do. Deal with it. Just because you lose, it's not his fault.
You know, I think if I had to come up with a reason, it would probably be fighter insurance. Because now that Zuffa has this, they're covering in-ring injuries and out-of-ring injuries. So I think that right there, if they have these guys on their roster who are 0-2 or something like that, and they get injured doing Lord knows what, UFC is going to be liable to cover for them. So, I don't know. That's just one potential factor I could think of.
It's hard to justify it. The only thing that jumps to mind for me, what Patrick said about the insurance makes sense. The only thing that jumps to mind to me is they've just brought Strikeforce over, so therefore they want to clear some of the rosters out. Maybe they're thinking about buying out another promotion. Maybe we'll see Bellator soon. I'm only joking. Who knows? But yeah, they always cut. It's always been part. We always see people get cut from the UFC. Obviously, seeing such a big amount is a shocker. But I still keep saying, if they'd cut all those people and John Fitch weren't on that list, I don't think there'd be so much uproar as what there is at the minute. But I think because John Fitch is on that list, there's a lot of uproar.
Yeah, I got to say, I think it's all these UFC cuts. I think it's just straight up corporate downsizing, just budgeting right here. With John Fitch, of course, I got to say, though, he did bring it on himself a little bit. I mean, I know for a fact well, for one, he's notorious and famous for being the most boring fighter in the UFC, arguably. All right, he's known for that. Right away, that's not a good sign. Your days are kind of numbered if you don't change that. He had years to change that. His last finish was in the year 2007. Secondly, with John Fitch, he had some dispute with the UFC over his likeness in the fucking video game or something like that. Let me tell you something. This is just common sense, and I'm not the smartest guy in the universe, just on this planet. But let me just say this, though. I know that if I sue my boss, he's going to use the first opportunity he has to fire me. And I think that's exactly what we saw. They're just trimming everything down. I don't know why Clay Guida wasn't on that list. I don't know for the life of me why Dan Hardy's not on that list. I could go on and on. But yeah, it looks like they're just trimming the boring fighters, the guys that aren't fucking making them money. You got to cut the guys that don't make you money. And it's the guys that either lose or don't put on exciting fights. So that's what we're going to see. I think it's a smart business move. Sorry for the fanfare.
True enough. We're getting into the last half hour of the podcast, so I guess we'll try and move it along. Really quickly, before we get into some announced fights from the last week, Chris Cyborg, we broke it on the MMA podcast as it came through, not signing with the UFC, joining Invicta. Do you think this is a smart move? I'm sure all of us will unanimously say no, as she can make tons more. But do you think the issue is weight or the fact that she doesn't want to fight Rousey? I think she just does not want to fight the chick. You know, it's kind of crazy. She says, I'll go to 140 but not 135. She's obviously willing to damage her body enough to take steroids, so I don't know why she's not willing to lose the extra 5 pounds to get the fight that is really the Mayweather-Pacquiao of women's MMA.
Her babies. Her babies.
Yeah. What sense do you all make out of it, Patrick?
I think this may be a smart move for Cyborg. I mean, honestly, she's had such a long layoff, and the UFC has, 4 female fighters signed at one weight class, which is 135 pounds. Invicta Fighting Championships. Shouts out to Shannon Knapp. She's doing big things. They're running that promotion well. Invicta's building a good name for itself in women's mixed martial arts and in mixed martial arts circles in general. I honestly don't know why the UFC created this division. There shouldn't be 135 pounds in the UFC in the first place. I think Invicta is doing great, doing what they're doing. I mean, I don't know, maybe UFC carrying these women will be what it takes to get women's MMA over the top, and maybe we'll see some of that success spill over into Invicta Fighting Championships even more. But it's just the place to go. I mean, there's no division for Cyborg, and Invicta Fighting Championship is the number one promotion in the world right now for women's mixed martial arts. So, money-wise, maybe not, but, I mean, this is the good move for Cyborg, I think, long term.
Just picking up quickly on what Ramsey said about Clay Guida and Dan Hardy, I believe in most UFC contracts there's a clause where if they lose a fight, they can be cut. And obviously that's why all those guys that have recently been cut, without going through, I'm pretty sure that all of them are on at least a one-fight losing streak. Where obviously Hardy's won his last fight and obviously Guida won his last fight. If Clay Guida lost to Chad Mendes, after seeing John Fitch be cut, I wouldn't be surprised to see Clay Guida cut if he lost that fight. With regards to Cyborg and Invicta, if he doesn't sign with UFC, Invicta's probably the next best promotion to go through for female MMA, for women's MMA. I don't know. I kind of believe that whole weight thing. She's never fought at 135. She's always been a big woman. So maybe she doesn't want to fight down 135. I don't know. But money-wise, you'd think you want to do the UFC because that's where you're going to get the biggest payday.
Yeah, Cyborg moving to Invicta, I actually think it was probably a smart move on behalf of Cyborg and more importantly on Tito Ortiz's part. Because basically Dana White was saying he was going to just shelve Cyborg and basically sign her to Zuffa but have her fight in Invicta. That was the game plan. So Tito just sees that and he's like, "Fuck, I'll cut Dana out and just do that myself until the UFC is ready to make a deal." So actually, hats off. I think Tito actually pulled a fucking move here.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be the first time Tifo's pulled the move, but as for the fight itself, I think it'd be a nice fight between Rousey and Cyborg. However, you look at guys like Anderson Silva, you look at guys like GSP, you look at guys like John Jones. A lot of them don't want to move down weight, so why should all of a sudden Cyborg be forced to, just so the UFC can get some money off it? I think personally the UFC has more money to gain from Cyborg dropping down than the UFC has to gain. And Tito Ortiz has always complained about money. He's always wanted more money. He's always asked for a percentage. He's always asked for more. He's always said that he doesn't get the most. Especially if it's going to be a headline fight, he's always going to push for that. I think that Invicta probably does have the best chance of exposure right now, especially for women's MMA. We haven't seen a lot of girls go to Bellator yet. So I think it's probably a good move on her behalf. I don't know where she takes the title at Invicta. She might get a couple of wins. She might shake the ring rust off, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, we will. We'll see. She's fighting, I think, India Gomez April 3rd in Invicta. So we'll see what happens and what the future holds for Chris Cyborg Santos.
Breaking news. Jake, hold on 1 second. Breaking news.
Ramses, break it.
Sorry, we were just touching on it. According to, I'm reading it right now. It's breaking on Twitter. According to Bjorn Rebney from Bellator, quote, "We will not sign John Fitch." Period.
Wow, bro! Jesus Christ. Wow, so that's crazy for John Fitch. Maybe he can wait some tables at an Applebee's. I don't know. Jesus Christ, that's wild. I don't know why he wouldn't do that. He would be maybe the best fighter in Bellator. But we will move on. We'll talk about that maybe next week as, more stuff rolls in. We obviously only have this preliminary statement to go on. Next week we'll have a lot more. What I think was the news of the week, other than the cuts, the cuts kind of overshadowed it because I think it came out the same day. Rory McDonald out for Sahabi, saying he just trains too hard. Rory out, won't be fighting Carlos Condit. Instead, Carlos Condit is going to fight Johnny Hendricks for what is probably going to be a title eliminator fight for the GSP Diaz winner. And Nate Marquardt stepping up to fight Jake Ellenberger, which we're talking about Fitch being cut. Fitch loses to number 5 Maya, gets cut. Marquardt loses to number 10 Safadine and gets this great fight against the contender, and Jake Ellenberger. Doesn't make sense. Which I actually just checked the UFC rankings page. If you do it right now, you'll notice that one of the spots is blank. They've erased John Fitch's name from the UFC rankings. Kind of shallow move by the UFC. But we'll talk about those fights really quick. Sorry, Ray, I know you've got to go because you got work to do. It's getting late, almost 2 a.m., so we'll try and tear through these last news bits by 9 and do Bonehead by then. Really quick, what do you guys think about Condit Hendricks? What do you think happens? I think this is an amazing fight. This is almost like the Dos Santos Overeem of the welterweight division. You have an excellent boxer who would be the Dos Santos, and Johnny Hendricks can end it in a snap. You have Carlos Condit, who's a lot like Overeem in the fact that he's a multifaceted kickboxer and can come at you with any angle, is pretty decent on the ground as well. I think Hendricks is the deserving number 1 title contender and should be fighting George St. Pierre, but I think Carlos Condit wins this one. What about you guys?
I think it's a great fight, and the fight makes more sense than Hendricks versus Ellenberger. They're both of them are capable of knocking each other out. I mean, Hendricks has got that one-punch power, but Condit's so explosive with his punches, with his knees. We've seen him knock out Kim with a knee. We've seen him knock out Hardy with a punch. It's a much trickier fight for Hendricks. I think Hendricks will win, but it's a much harder fight. Yeah,
actually, Hendricks is definitely going to win. I heard about Rory McDonald getting hurt, so I just, I helped put this fight together here in a matter of minutes for the UFC. They can thank me later, You're welcome, Uncle Dana. But yeah, it's good to see that this fight's finally going to happen. Condit's going to go night-night, all right? It's time for karma to come back around for throwing that fight against GSP. Everyone else is in denial, but Carlos, I know you're listening. I saw it. I know what you did. Johnny Hendricks is going to make you pay for that. Word on the street.
I'm glad both guys are walking in with a full fight camp behind them, so there's none of this, what would have happened with a full fight camp. Yeah, neither guy's really had time to scout out the opponent. I think Hendricks has got the power advantage, and I don't think we've seen Condit ever get knocked out, and if he has, it hasn't been for a long time. I think the fight's interesting, but right now I'm going with Hendricks to maybe even get the finish in this one. If not, I think that Condit, the fight has to stay on the feet, and Hendricks finds a way to win.
I really like this fight. It's super interesting. I just don't even know what to make with it. Whereas Hendricks was going to be facing Ellenberger, who's really a carbon copy of a lot of Hendricks' past opponents. Condit's completely different. He's got a more of a striking and Brazilian jiu-jitsu style as opposed to a boxing and wrestling style. Going to be coming with some diverse attacks. I think no matter what happens, this won't be a split decision like Hendricks' past couple fights have been. Either he's going to dominate Condit or Condit is going to dominate him. I don't think there's any way this fight's boring, and I don't think this fight will be close no matter how it goes down. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, damn, I keep missing my fucking cue on this. I'm sorry tonight, gentlemen.
Son of a bitch.
I'm going fucking crazy tonight. Don't worry, it will be edited out in post. Talk about that fight. Let's talk about the other fight. One of my favorite guys, Nate Marquardt, going against my namesake, Jake Ellenberger. What do you see going down in this one? Two very even fighters. Stylistically, they're almost identical. They're good wrestlers and got some power punching to back it up. Marquardt is a little bit more experienced, but Ellenberger has the youth on his side. Ellenberger looks dangerous. I've said it a million times, even though a lot of you disagree. I think that Campman fight was closer than a lot of people remember. I think he dropped Campman just as hard in the first round as Campman dropped him in the second. But other than that, I think Jake's a fight or two away from a title shot. And even though Nate Marquardt is one of my favorite guys in the welterweight division, I got Jake Ellenberger winning this one. It could be a flash knockout because both of these guys do have that power striking, but I'll say Jake Ellenberger by unanimous decision.
I think Nate Marquardt is very underrated, and I think Jake Ellenberger is very overrated. For me, the difference in this fight will be the cardio. Ellenberger in the past has struggled with cardio. Marquardt's never had a problem. We've seen him go 5 rounds. And he lost in his last fight to Tarek Safadin, but that was down to good game planning and some beautiful leg kicks. We're not going to see that from Ellenberger. And I think once Ellenberger gets tired, I can see Marquardt sinking in the sub, either late round 2 or early round 3, but I'll be picking Nate Marquardt to win this fight.
I got to be honest, I don't care about this fight, and I got nothing to say. So I'll just pass the mic over to my homie Jay. That rhymed.
Yeah, well, I love a great welterweight bout, and this is a great welterweight bout. I would have preferred to see this go different ways. I would have to seen Maya step in there when everything was going crazy. I would have loved to see Maya Condit, but it is what it is. Marquardt versus Ellenberger. Right now, I think that Ray's probably right. Ellenberger is a little bit overrated. However, he does have power. I think Marquardt will be able to outstrike him, though, even though his striking was kind of exposed during the Tarek Safadin fight. He's a Greg Jackson boy, so he'll be more than prepared for Ellenberger. So right now, I'm going with Nate.
This is a real interesting fight. I mean, this one is tough for me to call because I did not see Marquardt versus Safadin. I was very sad about that. I think this one's Ellenberger's, though, truthfully. Nate's good, but let's not forget as well, in other fights that were close that people seem to forget, was Nate Marquardt versus Tyron Woodley. Woodley did put some hands on Nate Marquardt, and I certainly think that Ellenberger is capable of doing the same. He's super strong, super accurate with his punches, and I think he might just put Nate Marquardt out in this one.
True enough. Yeah, we have 5 more news topics, and for the sake of time, we're going to go into rapid fire. We're going to go into lightning mode. Try and keep your responses to, around 10 seconds. We're just going to breeze through these. A couple UFC 160 announcements. Glover Teixeira versus Ryan Bader in a light heavyweight scrap. Who do you got? I got Glover Teixeira by unanimous decision. What about you guys?
Even though they both beat Rampage, it just seems like it's watching Rampage's leftovers fight. I don't fucking care who wins. But Teixeira, Bader, who cares?
Teixeira, I'm going to go with.
I'm going to shock the world and go with Ryan Bader. Glover was getting boxed up by Rampage. Rampage just didn't have the power. Bader will put him out.
Teixeira knockout.
Teixeira knockout. Damn. All right, then the other UFC 160 fight that was announced, Donald Cerrone versus KJ Noons. I think Cerrone by however he wants. Early submission. Why not?
I've got him
sorry.
I got him by submission as well. I don't know how he gets to the ground, but it will end up there and he'll probably get the choke in.
Well, I'll take Cerrone by unanimous decision.
You go get some, Donald Cerrone.
Was that your American accent?
No, that was Mr. Well, sort of. That was Mr. Greg Jackson, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, Greg Jackson.
I got to go with KJ Noons, actually. He's going to whoop Cerrone's ass, man. Cowboy looked like a bum against Pettis. Done.
Damn. All right, we'll move on. Anderson versus Weidman in talks for a July 6th Independence Day fight in Las Vegas. Is this the fight that should be made, and who you got? I think it is, obviously, with Rockhold and Belfort being linked to a fight. And I got Anderson second round knockout.
Oh, I've got to take Anderson in this one just because I think Weidman has what it takes to beat him, but until Weidman proves me wrong, it's Anderson Silva first round knockout.
I'm going for Weidman. I've said this for a while. I'm going Weidman to pull off the upset.
Yeah, I got to go with Weidman, too. He already revealed the game plan by mistake. Anderson's gonna drop the belt to him, and then they're gonna have an immediate rematch or whatever in New York. I believe that's what's gonna happen.
I'll give him a rematch and whoop him again.
Well, I don't know. Either way, I think Weidman wins both fights.
Silva, flying knee.
Flying knee. All right, two more left. Machida pondering a move to middleweight. Should he do it? I say no.
If he can make the weight, do it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I got to see how he looks against an old man first. I don't trust Machida after he got choked out like a hooker by John Jones.
I'd rather see Shogun move down. I'd rather see Rashad move down. Machida's not one of the guys I'd like to see move down quite yet.
I'm good with Machida doing the 185 thing. If he can make it healthfully, not hurt himself too much, give it a shot. Although I still think he's one of the best at 205.
For sure. And finally, new TRT stance by Dana White, saying he's going to test you when you're training. If you want to get testosterone test, you better not be taking anything else. You better not have a low T because you're juicing. Chael and Hendo approved. You? I do.
I just don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'm retarded. Maybe I'm missing something. But when Dana's like, man, if you're on TRT, we're gonna take shit out of you. What are you testing for exactly? That they're taking their testosterone shots. If they have a doctor's note, they're gonna be juiced all the time. That's the whole point. What are you testing for? Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. Help me out.
I understand it. I'll explain it if you want.
Please do.
Right. Basically, what he's saying is when they have their tests done either pre-fight or after the fight, they're at the right levels. They're at the levels that are approved, and those levels are legal. He has no problem with that at all. What he doesn't like, during training, because they're not getting tested, they're using illegal levels to help them in training, and then that helps them for the fight. Even though they're testing right for the fight, during the training, they're breaking the law and using illegal levels, so they're cheating. And what he's saying is, I don't want people using illegal levels and cheating during training, so I'm going to test you during training to make sure you're always under the legal level. That's what he was saying.
So he's making sure you're not super juicing.
Yeah, you can juice, but only under the legal level that's set, not the UFC, that's set by whoever, the Nevada state or whatever.
It's like here in Texas when they have an alcohol limit. All right, I got you. Thanks for setting that straight.
No problem, mate.
I think it was on J next for
the
TRT.
Sorry, confused me there. Somebody said it best last week. I'm not sure who it was. It might have even been MMA Valor, Starstorm, Mike Hammersmith. If you're old, you're old. That's it. Why are you taking a supplement that you probably shouldn't be having? I don't think it's fair. I didn't have an opinion before he said it, but I think that's the truth.
Yeah, it's this TRT thing is just such a it's a slippery slope. It's murky waters. Call it what you will. This is just a hot button issue. I'm one of those ones. I don't even know where I stand myself. Part of me wants, people not to. I don't want people juicing and stuff like that because I just want to see what people can do. Who's the best God-given athlete that there is? Not who's the fucking dope to the gills and who's got the best fucking scientists and shit like that. Who can cut 50 pounds in a night and then fucking rehydrate back up to 1 million pounds. Fuck all that shit. I want to see, who's doing the best with what they were dealt. Fuck this scientific engineering shit. I'm with it. Test these fuckers.
I want to see, just real quick, I want to see a super fight between the best God-given fighter on the planet versus the best man-made fighter. That's what I want to see personally.
Ray?
My views are, I haven't really understood it really until it was explained about what Dana said at the press conference. What Mike said last week makes sense. Yeah, they shouldn't be doing it. But if by law they're allowed to do it, then they should stay within the legal limits. They shouldn't be using the illegal limits during training. So yeah, if he's going to bring in new testing, I think that's fair.
True enough, and that brings us to our bonehead of the week. Boom, 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 boom. All right, my bonehead of the week this week is Mr. Matt Riddle. He is a fighter I like, but he is my bonehead. Didn't do anything serious. I have a lot of vendettas from week to week, but this is just kind of a silly one. Riddle saying that his feud with the British fans are over. He obviously stirred the pot with his British fans when he called out the butter-toothed Brits, talking about not liking the fans there, how they were very rude to him, how he called out Dan Hardy, etc., etc., etc. He said his beef was over, and my bonehead is Matt Riddle, because that's not how beefs work. You just don't call out an entire population of people and call them butter-toothed Brits, and then after you beat a British guy, go, yeah, feud's over, don't worry about it. Like, no, they still hate you. It was a joke in the first place, and you talked before the fight about how it was only a joke and you didn't hate people from Britain, but yeah, it's a funny move. Oh, the feud's over. No, it's not, just because you say it's over. They fucking hate you, Riddle. You're my bonehead of the week.
Right, my bonehead of the week is Ulysses Gomez. It's for personal reasons. Me and Ulysses had a bit of an agreement, and we were going to have a meet up and do an interview, and then that all kind of fell through, which was no fault of anybody's. And we was going to come on and we were going to have a chat about his experiences in London. So it's always a bit iffy after it's not gone their way, but I thought I don't want to ignore them. I'm going to message anyway. So I sent them a message on Facebook, and we do interact on Facebook. I said, sorry to see your fight didn't go your way, but if you still want to come on the show, I'd love to blabber on and chat about your experiences in London. And he texted back saying, how did I score the fight? I thought, bloody hell, put me on the spot. I'm not going to lie to him. I dumbed it down a little bit. I didn't want to say the truth, but I thought, I'm not going to lie to him. So I sent him a polite message back saying, it was a very close fight, but I thought Phil just edged it. And he sent me a message back with one word, and the word said weak, which I thought was a bit of a piss take. He didn't want an answer, he shouldn't have asked the question. But what made me laugh was, hours after sending me that message, he got put by the UFC. So maybe I'm not the weak one. Maybe somebody else saw what I saw, because to be honest with you, I wasn't completely honest with him. I thought the fight was terrible, and I thought neither guy really did enough to be angry with the decision. It could have gone either way. I don't think Ben Harris could have had a case to put forward, because I don't think both guys were pretty inactive. So I'm going ahead to Ulysses Gomez.
Oh, I guess that's me then. I've got to be the guy to do it. It's got to be... I've picked him a load of times. You guys probably have as well, but my bonehead this time is Dana White cutting 16 fighters from the UFC, who I think 7 out of more than that, probably about 10 of the 16 didn't deserve to be cut in the first place. My bonehead.
Yeah, my bonehead is Rory McDonald. I have to say, this is his 4th fight, I believe, in about 3 years that he's pulled out of in the UFC. It's just embarrassing. Last time it was a cut over his eye. Come on, guy. Give me a fucking break, Rory McDonald. what the hell's really going on here with all these injuries. He's on track to be the next fucking Tito Ortiz by the time he's 26 years old. He's fucking, even Rampage was like, damn, man, you're fucked up. You're fucked up. Rory McDonald, what's going on here? You're pulling out another big money fight. This is not making you look good. You're a bonehead. Bone.
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
Hey, for Key Money, my bonehead of the week is Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Reports come out recently that apparently, thankfully, he was uninjured in a rock climbing accident or a rock climbing fall. What the fuck are you doing? Wasn't there a report that he got kicked in the face by his horse prior to his Nate Diaz fight? And something about, I swear to God, I heard something about his fucking intestines being pulled out of his asshole or something like that. I don't know what the fuck this guy's doing. Apparently, he must have just a death wish or something, or, you know, I do not understand it, but, you know, I don't think the UFC will keep you on your roster that much longer if you're going to keep fucking yourself up like this. I mean, even though he's allegedly uninjured, come on, are you fucking kidding me? How many times is that shit going to happen? You're not going to fall off a fucking cliff or some shit like that and not get uninjured every time. Donald Cerrone, you're my bonehead of the week.
Bone. It's close. I really want to pick Dana White, but I'm gonna take Ulysses Gomez. You can't be pulling shit. Right? All right. For one, Ray's one of the nice people on the planet. Two, what are you used to fucking everyone being yes man? Oh yeah, you won. You didn't win. You lost that fight. And asking someone, hey, do you think I won? If anything, it should be refreshing when someone says, yeah, you had a good fight, but you know, I had you losing 29-28. No, instead of just being like weak, what a fucking child, what a bonehead. You're my bonehead of the week, useless. Truly apt nickname.
I'm going to vote for Dana White because I was just gutted to see John Fitch get cut.
So only you can vote for yourself. You can't. I've got to go with the useless. If I was in the UFC, I'd be the villain. I love playing that part. And if anybody's going to tell me that I lost the fight, I'd go on their show just to fucking have a go at them. It'd be more fun. It'd be great for the host. I'm sure Ray would love to have a guest come on his show and shout at you, wouldn't you, Ray?
As long as he doesn't do what Mark Hunt did to me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure it would be more entertaining. It would sell better. You'd sell yourself as well by acting as the villain. Just so weak is pathetic. You should have replied with some shit like, what, weak? Well, what, you were pretty weak in that fight for not finishing some unknown British guy, but you didn't. You're a better man than me. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Ray on this one.
And I got to go with Donald Cerrone, man. What the fuck were you thinking, son? Climbing rocks? What the hell's that even about? That doesn't accomplish shit. It's not applicable in the real world, man. You're an idiot. You're a bonehead. That's all I got to say.
And as much as I'm for my own topic, I'll have to go with Useless Gomez because I'll tell you what, that's not right. I mean, I saw him explaining on Twitter about how he thought he won that fight. I'll tell you what, I didn't even see that fight. I got home, I was out and about running errands. Miscalculated my rifle a little bit. I got home for like the last minute of that fight in the third round, and all I saw was him getting lit up. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I missed him winning a fight, but I haven't really felt compelled to go back and watch it yet. And to diss my boy Ray like that, fuck no, homie. You're the bonehead of the week.
Son. And that makes Useless Gomez the bonehead of the week. You can't be fucking with our boy Ray. Ray's making moves, getting media passes. Come on, son. All right, Ray. Speaking of Ray, he's a working man. It's 2 a.m. He has work early in the morning. Ray's gonna dip out really quickly. Ray, let me get your quick picks for UFC 157, and I'll let you plug the pod and bow out. Koscheck Lawler, who you got? You with us, Ray?
Oh, no.
Sorry, I was on mute. For me, Josh Koscheck by Saul. It'll be a copy of Koscheck and Anthony Johnson.
Hell yeah. Court McGee versus Josh Neer in another welterweight bout.
Court McGee by sub as well. I think Neer looked awful in his last fight. McGee is dropping to welterweight. I think he'll get a submission.
We got a couple bantamweight contenders. Number 2, Uriah Faber versus number 10 ranked Ivan Menjivar.
I've never been a big fan of Menjivar, so I'm going to go for Faber. I think Faber will get a stoppage. I think more likely than knockout will be a sub, so I'm going to go for a sub for that one as well.
All right, light heavy is Hendo Machida. Who you got?
Machida to avoid the big shots, land more frequently, and win a decision.
And the women's bantamweight title, Rousey Carmouche. Does Carmouche make it out of the first minute?
Round 1 sub armbar.
Armbar. Definitely check out MMA Mental on Twitter, on the website MMAmental.com. You know all the crazy interviews. Anything else, Ray?
No, just do what Jake says. If Jake says do it, then you've got to do it.
If I say do it, if Ramsey says do it, it's going to change your life. MMA Mental. Ray, thank you so much. You're hosting the call, so I'll
leave the call open.
All right, cool. Thank you, Ray. Do work, and we appreciate you bringing MMA Mental on as a part of the roundtable, and love doing this show with you. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, Pete.
Later, buddy. And Patrick, Patrick, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I must bid the MMA fans adieu as well.
You have time for your UFC 157 quick picks?
Hit me, brother.
Koscheck Lawler.
That's got to be Koss.
McGee versus Josh Neer.
That's an interesting one. I'll go to Rising McGee.
Uriah Faber versus the Canadian Ivan Menjivar.
I think Faber will do it. Menjivar's tricky, though.
Title eliminator for the 205-pound belts, Dan Henderson versus Lyoto the Dragon Machida.
I don't even care what anybody says. I know what I'm talking about. I know I should be making a different pick, but I'm going with Dan Henderson. God damn it. Round 1 knockout.
Hendo, that beautiful right hand. And Ronda Rousey, Liz Carmouche. I asked Ray, does Carmouche make it out of the first minute?
Yes, she'll make it out of the first minute. Potentially even the first round. She could be the first girl to take Rousey past the first round, but I got to think Ronda's going to take this.
All right, well, as fucking always, thank you for coming on the show, MMA Mental. Follow Patrick on Twitter, Sweet Pappy Jones, SweetPappyJones, or JONES. We will see you next week and break down UFC 157. We have so many cards coming up. We've got UFC on Fuel 8 to break down. We have, I think, 7 cards. 7 UFC cards in the next 9 weekends. So, we will see you next week, man. Take it easy.
Looking forward to it, brother. You guys take care.
Word. All right, so that leaves it to 3 of us to break down these fights. Myself, Jay, and Ramses. I guess we'll go in the same order. Welterweight bout, Josh Koscheck taking on Robbie Lawler. I don't think Robbie Lawler has much of a chance in this. Lawler, early on, it's one of those fights I say a lot. The longer the fight goes on, X fighter has a greater chance to win. The longer this fight goes on, obviously Koscheck is going to have a greater chance to win. Lawler has, crazy strength. He comes out with a lot of power. A lot of people are saying he has the power to knock out Koscheck early. I don't think he does it. I think Koscheck, he talks a lot of shit and he acts like this crazy bad guy, but he's smart, and he's gonna ride him out to a unanimous decision. What do you guys think?
I love a good welterweight fight. However, I think Lawler's, in my eyes, he's a middleweight, and there's so much better fights for him. There's Brian Stan, there's Vonleh Silva, there's Chris Lieben, there's even Alessio Sakara. Well, why is he fighting a wrestler, welterweight? I don't have a clue. Does the UFC really think that Robbie Lawler's got wrestling defense as good as Josh Koscheck's takedown offense? I don't think so. I think Koscheck wins this one. If he wants to push himself for the sub, he can get it. But I think he might just have be on cruise control and grind him out.
Yeah, on this one, Jesus. I don't really care about this fight. Koscheck, Lawler. Didn't they bring Robbie Lawler out of the pit of obscurity? Isn't this his first UFC fight in something like a decade or something almost? Something ridiculous. this guy doesn't stand a chance. It's going to be like when they fed Eddie Sanchez to Crow Cop. All right. I'm going with Josh Koscheck in this one, even though, you know, nobody likes that guy, including myself. But yeah, he's probably going to take it.
Yeah, Koscheck, a heavy favorite in Vegas as well, minus 500, so he's basically a 5-1 favorite. We'll move on to another welterweight fight. Courtney McGee taking on Josh Neer. Both of them on very similar career tracks. Josh Neer was on a 6-fight win streak until losing his last 2 to Mike Pyle and Justin Edwards, both in the first round. Courtney McGee himself was on an 8-fight win streak before losing 2 fights by unanimous decision to Costa Philippou and Jay's boy, Nick Ring. They're both fighting each other. You know, Court has a very grinding style, and even though Neer hasn't gone to a decision in his last 11 fights, I think this one's going to go to a decision, and I give it to Court McGee.
I don't really care about this fight either. But I'll just go with Court McGee because he was in the last UFC video game, and Josh Neer was not. So for that reason alone, I will go with Court McGee to win this fucking fight via fucking armbar second round.
Oh, I don't care for the fight either, but it'd be nice to see Court McGee in my favourite division, just so some wrestlers can manhandle him, because he's kind of built up as an anti-wrestler, you know, somebody who to beat the wrestlers. But he only fought Japanese fight, not even Japanese, Korean. He fought like Dong Yang and that sort of guys. He's not that good, but I think he wins this fight. I don't know how. Maybe he might get the... Nah, he won't get the TK. I'll go with submission, yeah, probably.
All right, moving on, the last 3 fights. Bantamweight fight, Uriah Faber taking on Ivan Menjivar. And I hope it doesn't make anybody mad that I think Uriah Faber, I don't know, at least in the face, looks a little bit like another fighter on the UFC 157 main card, namely somebody fighting in the main event who's fighting a champion who hasn't defended her belt yet and was in the Navy, and his last name rhymes with Farmouche. Uriah Faber looks a little bit like that fighter. But we got two bantamweights. Number 2, Uriah Faber taking on number 10, Ivan Menjivar. Ivan Menjivar is on a roll, but I kind of feel like they're setting Uriah Faber up for a win. Uriah Faber's a company boy. He single-handedly kept the WEC afloat for a long time. I'm sure Zuffa appreciates it. Uriah Faber really wants that title, and as long as he stays around and he's able to, you know, beat 1 or 2 contenders in a row, they'll keep giving him title shots. They'll, you know, shit, if he keeps doing it, you know, in the next few years, we'll probably see him get 6 title shots. Just title shot, a win or 2, title shot, a win or 2, title shot, a win or 2, because that's what it seemed like since losing to Mike Brown. So yeah, I think if Faber takes on a really tough guy like a Michael McDonald, I think Michael McDonald would beat Uriah Faber. But Ivan Menjivar, even though he's on a roll, I just think he's almost at Faber's level, but not quite. Faber, you know, I hate to call 3 decisions in a row. I would call a Faber finish, but Menjivar is a pretty gritty fighter, so I'll just say Uriah Faber, 29-28, unanimous decision.
Oh, if Faber didn't wrestle him, I think Menjivar would be able to win a stand and tag battle. I can't stand Faber. You know, I can't stand his bum chin. I can't stand the fact he looks like a loose comic. I just can't stand anything about him, really. I can't stand the fact he trains the match. Instead of ranting about Uriah Faber, I should just end it with the fact Uriah Faber's going to win this match, whether I want to or not.
When you say bum chin, do you say he has a weak chin, or his chin looks like a bum?
The chin looks like a bum. I don't think he's got a dodgy chin.
Alright, we don't use the word bum a lot for butts in the U.S., but I pick up on what you're saying there.
Okay,
the Bum Bum song by Tom Green was one of the more popular hits in my childhood. Go ahead, Ramses.
Oh, yeah, this fucking fight here. Yeah, it's a total setup. This is going to be a total work. I just want to know how much they have Menjivar to fucking take this dive that we're going to see. Uriah Faber, they want to keep him around. Dana's saying, oh, man, if he loses this fight, we're going to cut Uriah Faber. Give me a fucking break here. We all know you're just building some drama here. You're just hyping the fight. We all know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll go to decision. Maybe Uriah will score some miraculous submission out of nowhere. We'll see what happens. But yeah, you put that money on Uriah Faber to win it.
Indeed. So our last two fights, both of pretty big significance in their respective divisions. You have the light heavyweight bout, number 1 Dan Henderson, number 2 Lyoto Machida, and obviously these rankings don't take into account the champion. The champions are unranked, and then the numbers go as far as contendership. Dan Henderson, the number 1 contender, Lyoto Machida, number 2. A lot of people saying, oh yeah, the winner gets John Jones, kind of overlooking the Sonnen fight. Ramses, before you get into before we get into Dan versus Lyoto, I know we didn't really plan on this talking point, but what do you have to say to everybody saying, all right, well, it looks like the winner of Dan Henderson, Lyoto Machida, is going to take on John Jones? And then if someone says, well, what about the winner of John Jones and Chael? No, it's going to be John Jones. Come on. The winner's going to fight John. What do you think about all these people overlooking this UFC 159 title fight?
Look, they didn't think Mike Tyson would get knocked out by Buster Douglas out there in Japan or whatever it was, all right? Look, an upset. Oh, man. Yeah, it's easy to look past Chael Sonnen when he's going up against John Jones. But look, man, no one has ever taken it to Johnny Bones Jones like my man Chael Sonnen is going to do. No one's ever taken the fight to him, got that pressure on him fearlessly. Chael Sonnen ain't going to be afraid of this fucking guy. He's been slow rolling, smooth talking Johnny Bones Jones all through the filming of The Ultimate Fighter, just buddying up or whatever. John Jones ain't going to know what hit him, man. I predict John's going to end up with 2 broken legs. He's going to need assistance getting carried out of that fucking octagon. April 27th in Newark, New Jersey, UFC 159. Yeah, man, you can't chill out. That's great. That just makes the odds that's better for me because I'm betting everything I got on fucking Chael Patrick's son. Word on the street.
Live on pay-per-view, and we'll get into that title contendership fight. Dan Henderson and Lyoto Machida. Instead of leading off, let me hear what you all have got to say about the fight. I'll start it back off with you, Ramses. Dan Henderson, Lyoto Machida. You got Henderson. Let me look up their records right now and talk bullshit. No, you have Henderson who's coming off. He's 7-1 in his last 8. His only loss, an embarrassing one to Jake Shields. That Strikeforce Nashville fight. 4 in a row to Renato Sobral, Rafael Cavalcante, and more recently Fedor and Hua, a KO and a unanimous decision. Hendo hasn't fought in a while. He hasn't fought since November 2011. Didn't fight at all in 2012. Lyoto Machida, obviously, not as esteemed in his last few fights. He's 3-2 in his last 5, but those losses, were against Shogun, John Jones, and a arguable decision against Rampage. He looked great against Ryan Bader, and their styles match very, very interestingly. Machida's a counter striker, while Henderson's a Olympic wrestler with maybe the hardest hitting one-punch power we've ever seen in the UFC. I mean, he puts people out with that right H-bomb. What do you guys think? Hendo, Machida? I'll let you lead it off, Ramses.
Yeah, at first this fight was who knows, it was a pick'em, but closer it gets to fight time, I've got to make a fucking choice. And it just looks like Lyoto Machida is in better shape. Hendo's been out for a reason, let's face it. And everything from Hendo has been just negative. Everything from Lyoto Machida has been positive. Henderson, he just seems like a cranky old man complaining about this and that. His knee, the title shot, this isn't fair. We're not the headliner. Enough, Dan Henderson. I think he's sounding cranky. I think it's because the old age is getting to him. for that reason alone, I think Lyoto Machida is going to take this one. Probably decision. Decision, yeah.
For me, this is a very interesting fight. Machida is very much a statistics-based fighter, but Dan Henderson is going to finish the fight with one punch if he gets that chance. But you've really got to look at previous fights. Well-rounded fighters against Machida's, people like John Jones, people like Shogun, they destroyed Machida in terms of strikes landed. Shogun was able to land 80 in their 25-minute fight. Shogun was able to land 17 in their 3-minute fight. But then you look against boxers against against Machida, and it's a whole different ball game. Rashad landed 4 in 9 minutes. Randy landed 5 in 6 minutes. Bader 7 in 7 minutes. Rampage 16 in 15 minutes. Boxers can't land against Machida. It's almost as simple as that. So the chances that Henderson's got of landing that big bomb is incredibly slim. And yeah, one punch might land, but Dan Henderson's going to have to get inside, and he's going to get frustrated. I think Machida's going to have the better cardio. I think overall Machida's speed advantage is going to be insane, and Henderson's going to look like a fish out of water, taking leg kicks and body kicks. I almost said cocks there. Body kicks from miles away. So in the end, Dan Henderson...
Body cocks.
Yeah, exactly. Body cocks. We've all got body cock. In the end, Hendo might get desperate and rush in and he'd get caught with something, but I think Henderson's chin will hold up, but his cardio definitely won't, so I'm going with Machida to get the decision.
I'm going to be rooting for Dan Henderson. I'm going to be rooting for him hard. I really want to see him get a shot at the title. He definitely is one of the greatest fighters of all time, arguably the greatest fighter of all time if you look at his career accomplishments. The one thing that stands out that he does not have is a UFC championship, and he's one win away, or he's 2 wins away from getting it. If he wins this fight, he'd get a shot at the winner of Jones-Hendo. And, he should have gotten his shot before, but he got injured. You can't do anything about that. And I am going to be rooting for Hendo, but I think Lyoto Machida, you look at his style, he's very quick getting in and out, striking in and out, especially countering. Like you said, Jay, really good against boxers, really good against punches. And Hendo loves setting up the right hand. I'm sure Machida studied it. I'm sure he's all over it. And I think Lyoto Machida will ride out Dan to a 3-round decision. If Dan can time it out right, I'm sure he's been training a lot. Lyoto likes to leap in with a lot of quickness. If he can somehow time a right uppercut or a right hook or even a right straight as Lyoto's leaping in, get some of that kinetic energy of him moving forward into a punch, I think he could do a lot of damage, but in my mind, I truly am thinking of it as probably 60% Machida wins, 40% Hendo wins. The odds in Vegas are favoring Lyoto Machida actually by quite a bit. Minus 250 for Lyoto Machida, plus 200 for Dan Henderson. You would triple your money essentially. You would triple your money betting on Hendo. Talk about betting that kind of transitions into the main event, Rousey versus Carmouche. Ronda Rousey has one of the craziest lines I've ever seen, minus 1,200, which means if you bet $1,200 in Vegas, you know what profit you get? $100. So, have fun with putting up $1,200 to win just a measly 100. That is how much she's favored. She is the queen of women's MMA, armbarring everybody she gets her hands on. And I see a armbar first round. I'm actually going to call it out. I say 46 or 51. It's going to be one of the two. I'm going to say 46 seconds she gets the submission into the fight. Word on the street. What do you guys think?
I think Ronda wins. I think it's as simple as that. It's just a question of, like you guys have been saying, it's a question of how long it takes. I think Liz taps. I don't think Laser's a value contender, and I don't think there really is any value contenders. The only one we've mentioned already in the show, and that's Cyborg. That's that.
Ronda Rousey will submit Liz Carmouche in the first round via armbar at the 2-minute and 39-second mark. Word on the street.
2:39, giving her quite a bit of time. She's only gone past a minute once in her entire career. And I guess that brings this podcast to a close. Let me double check the MMA news feed. Nothing else has popped up. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who listened live. Anybody who wants to listen live, the show's every week, every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 to 6 Pacific, 12 to 2 a.m. We went a little overtime. We went about 2.5 hours tonight because we had a lot to talk about. And we love doing it. Listen to us on Ustream. We keep our Twitters open. No one tweeted in tonight, unfortunately, except our buddy Brandon Saylor at KO Power 15, giving us a great show, guys. Thank you for that. But yeah, tweet in, and we love, talking points that you guys send in. Ray already plugged in MMA Metal. Check them out at MMAmetal.com and on Twitter at MMA Metal. They have tons of great interviews. Ramses, what's the word on the street?
You gotta follow the Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter. If you're not getting laid, if maybe, you're thinking about, jumping off the fucking bridge, if you want to die, I'll turn that all around and give you a reason to live. Follow the Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter. Word on the street.
Jay, what's up with the playground, son?
Right, today we talked about cocks, we talked about ball sacks, we talked about James Head. If you want to hear it,
boobs.
Yeah, we haven't really discussed boobs much today. We've discussed girls, but not enough boobs. Maybe next week we can have a bit of boobs. If you want to hear all that sort of shit, just go to MMAplayground.com, go on the forums. We talk about that sort of stuff, like it's the things we love, because we do love a bit of that sort of stuff. Make your picks every so often. That is just as simple as www.MMAplayground.com, and see if you can beat us, guys, We're pretty good pickers, except for Jay.
I'm horrible, and I like to hang out in the off-topic forum and talk about the size of my penis. But unfortunate, the unfortunate size of my penis. But no, I'm pretty horrible at picking, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. The MMA podcast, it's every Friday. Ramses and I are going to be doing that tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, 9 to 11 Eastern. The time's the same. We have been doing it at Wednesday, but the last few weeks we've switched it to Friday, and we're going to keep doing that for the next week or two. So check in tomorrow and the next few Fridays, 9 to 11 Eastern, 6 to 8 Pacific. We're going to be talking about similar topics, but going a little bit more in depth. Ramses brings those crazy takes. Definitely delve in to that and maybe get a couple callers from Team Darkside. Love hearing from them. Follow us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast, themapodcast.com. No guests lined up for this week, but next week we have guests in the work. We're still planning on bringing Joey Diaz on soon. He had a baby recently, but now that it's a few months old, I'm gonna DM him and see what's up about him coming on. But really, I know I say it a lot, and it probably seems like I'm just kind of skimming over it. But we really, really appreciate everyone who listens, supports us. We get nothing but positive feedback. You are some cool fucking bitches, and we love making these. It's the 20th. We can't wait for the next 20. We'll see you next week.